Oh hey, what's up guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. So in this video we are going to see what if Naruto reincarnation as Flash and master molecular vibration ninjutsu. This will be very interesting video, and I have divided this video into 6 chapters, so it will be easy to follow the flow of the video. And make sure to leave a like, share and subscribe for more amazing content. And if you have any ideas for next video, then please comment down your feedback in the video, in the comment section. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right back into the video.
Chapter 1. Static. A new awakening in central Konoha. Morning in Konoha usually began with noise. Not loud noise, not all at once. It began in layers. The soft push of broom bristles across storefront stone, the creak of shutters opening, the distant clatter of metal pots from food stalls preparing for the lunch rush hours before anyone would stand in line. Sandals against rooftops, laughter from academy students pretending not to race each other down the street, birds in the wires, wind in the banners. A village waking up one heartbeat at a time. Naruto Uzumaki had always loved that sound. Today, it felt wrong. He stood in training ground 3 with one hand half raised, sunlight sharp on the edge of his fingers, and stared at the air in front of him like it had just insulted him. Something was off, not bad at first, not pain, not sickness, just wrong. A strange tension beneath his skin, like his whole body had gone to sleep and hadn't decided whether it wanted to wake up or burn alive. The grass around his sandals shivered though there was no wind. A dry, electric taste sat on the back of his tongue. Every hair on his arm stood up. Across from him, Kakashi Hatake looked up from his orange book with one lazy eye. "You've been holding that pose for 10 seconds, Kakashi said. "If this is a new taijutsu stance, it needs work." Naruto didn't laugh. That, more than anything, made Kakashi lower the book. Naruto flexed his fingers. The joints buzzed, not trembled, buzzed, fast enough that the motion blurred at the edges. "You ever feel," Naruto said slowly, "like the air's too close?" Kakashi tilted his head. "That is one of your stranger questions, and that's an impressive category." "I'm serious." Kakashi closed the book on one finger to keep his page and actually looked at him now, not casually, carefully. It was supposed to be a simple session. Basic control drills, chakra compression, a few clone feints into short-range attack patterns. Naruto had insisted he wanted to tighten his fundamentals again because, according to him, "I can totally tell when I'm getting rusty and it's annoying." Kakashi had shown up late, as was tradition. Naruto had shouted about it, as was also tradition. Then the weirdness started. Now Naruto could hear the scrape of a beetle 3 trees over. He could hear a drip of water rolling off a leaf on the far side of the clearing. He could hear Kakashi's breathing through the cloth over his face, steady and quiet and too precise. Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Why can I hear everything?" Kakashi stood. That made Naruto straighten. "Try a basic clone," Kakashi said. Naruto snorted. "That's like asking me to prove I can breathe." "Humor me." Naruto brought his hands together automatically, or tried to. The first sign felt stupid. His fingers didn't miss the seal because he forgot it. They missed because they moved too fast. His index and middle fingers snapped into alignment, overshot, corrected, overshot again, and turned into a pale blur right in front of his face. Chakra flared out of his hands in a spray of blue-gold sparks and vanished before it could stabilize. Naruto jerked back. Kakashi's visible eye sharpened instantly. Naruto stared at his own hands. "What?" he said. He tried again. Ram, or the shape of it anyway. The motion should have been simple. Familiar. Muscle memory older than most of his better decisions. Instead, his fingers vibrated so violently that the seal dissolved as it formed. Chakra surged up his arms, hit the unstable pattern, and dispersed into the air in a bright crackle that smelled like rain striking hot stone. No clone appeared. Naruto's stomach dropped. Kakashi was beside him a second later. Naruto hadn't even seen him move. "Again," Kakashi said. "I did it right." "I know. Again." Naruto grit his teeth and forced himself to slow down. He could do that. He had learned patience, sort of, more than before anyway. He inhaled. His fingers still buzzed. He exhaled and brought his hands together 1 inch at a time. For a moment, it worked. Chakra flowed. He felt it gather in his coils, rise, focus, then the skin over his knuckles flashed with a hair-thin line of golden light. His hand sign broke apart. The chakra didn't just fail. It scattered as if something inside him had rejected the pattern itself. Naruto swore. Kakashi caught his wrist. The grip was firm, not forceful. A teacher's grip. Naruto expected the normal sensation of contact, pressure, warmth, skin against skin. Instead, for the barest fraction of a second, Kakashi's hand felt delayed. Like Naruto had moved through the feeling before it arrived, both of them noticed. Kakashi let go slowly. Naruto swallowed. "You felt that, right?" Kakashi didn't answer immediately, which was almost worse. "Walk," he said. "What? Just walk?" Naruto gave him an offended look. "I know how to walk. Convince me." Naruto rolled his eyes and took 3 steps across the clearing. The 4th step landed too lightly. The 5th never fully touched the ground. The 6th carried him forward in a blur that snapped the grass flat behind him and sent him skidding halfway across the training field in a spray of dirt. Naruto pinwheeled both arms, barely caught himself, then spun around with wide eyes. Kakashi had not moved, but the spot where Naruto had been standing a second earlier now had a shallow trench carved through the earth. Naruto looked at the line in the dirt, then at his sandals, then back at Kakashi. "I didn't do that on purpose." "I know." Naruto laughed once, short and sharp. "That's not reassuring." Kakashi approached the trench and crouched. 2 fingers brushed the disturbed soil. Tiny curls of smoke rose from it, not heat smoke. Friction. Kakashi glanced back. "Again! Again! Not the sprint. Try moving normally. Pay attention to the moment before you step." Naruto muttered something rude under his breath, but he obeyed. He shifted his weight carefully. The hum under his skin answered. It was getting stronger. Not louder, deeper. Less like sound, more like his entire body had become an instrument, and someone unseen had just plucked the right string. Chakra moved in his coils, but it felt different. Usually chakra was warm. Wild, sometimes. Stubborn, definitely, but familiar. This felt sharp, electric, violent in a way that wasn't angry. Pure motion. Pure potential. Like standing too close to a storm and realizing the lightning hadn't struck, yet only because it was deciding where. Naruto set 1 foot down, then another. So far, so good. He passed one of the wooden training posts at the edge of the clearing and reached out absent-mindedly to steady himself. His palm touched wood, then it didn't. His hand sank through it. Naruto froze. The post did not splinter. It did not crack. It separated. A perfectly smooth line appeared where his arm had passed through, the upper half sliding soundlessly off the lower, as though something had erased the bonds holding it together. The cut was so clean it took a full second for gravity to realize it had a job. Then the top half tipped, hit the ground, and rolled once through the grass. Silence dropped across the field. Naruto looked down at his hand still extended in empty air. Then at the fallen post. Then at Kakashi. Kakashi's book disappeared into his vest pocket so fast Naruto almost missed it. "Well," Kakashi said softly, "that's new." Naruto yanked his hand back like the air might bite him. "I didn't hit it. I can see that. I didn't even feel it." That was the part that made his voice rise. He had broken training posts before, loads of them, with punches, with Rasengan. Once with a badly aimed kick while arguing with Sai, but this wasn't breaking. There had been no resistance, no impact. His hand had simply been on one side of the wood and then the other, as if the space in between had stopped mattering. Kakashi stood very still, gaze fixed on the post. "Naruto?" He said at last, "Use chakra perception." "I'm not great at that." "Try anyway." Naruto closed his eyes, partly because obeying was easier than thinking too hard right now. He reached inward. He found his chakra almost instantly. It should have been a comfort. It wasn't. His network felt like it had been threaded through with light, not blue. Not red. Gold. Hair-thin lines of it raced alongside the normal flow of chakra through his coils, darting too fast to follow, weaving in and out like lightning learning how to think. Each time he tried to focus on one, it was already somewhere else. The sensation made his teeth hurt, his eyes snapped open. "There's something in my chakra." Kakashi's eye narrowed. "Describe it! Fast! That is not a medical diagnosis." Naruto shot him a glare that would have been more effective if he didn't sound half out of breath. "It's like my chakra isn't alone anymore, like there's another current running through it, but not against it, inside it." Kakashi looked at the destroyed post again. "Stop training," he said. That got Naruto's head up. "What? Immediately? I'm fine. You phased through solid wood." "I did not phase through." Kakashi pointed at the post. Naruto stopped talking. Kakashi's voice lost its lazy edge. "Your hand signs are destabilizing. Your movement output just gouged a trench without intent. And that," he pointed again, "was not a strength problem or a control problem or an ordinary chakra surge. We're done for today." Naruto hated the thin thread of fear that twisted through his chest at those words. Not because Kakashi was wrong, but because part of him had already known that, because the wrongness wasn't fading, it was building. He shoved both hands into his pockets so Kakashi wouldn't see they were still trembling. "So what? I go to the hospital and Sakura lectures me for not sleeping enough?" Kakashi studied him for a moment. "Not Sakura," he said. "Lady Tsunade." Naruto tried to grin and missed by a mile. "Wow, going straight to the scary one. You're close enough to her that she won't charge you extra for complaining." "That's not a real discount." "No," Kakashi said. "But it might keep her from punching me for waiting too long." Naruto opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. The world had tilted again, not physically, perceptually. A leaf drifted down from one of the tall trees ringing the field, and for one disorienting instant Naruto could see every twitch of it. The spin of the stem, the bend of the veins, the exact point where sunlight turned its edge translucent. It took forever to reach the ground. Far longer than it should have. Then reality snapped back into place and the leaf landed. Naruto's heart thudded once, hard. Kakashi noticed. "Naruto?" "I'm okay." That answer came too quickly. Kakashi infuriatingly let it pass. "Go home, don't train." "Don't use chakra unless you absolutely have to. I'll speak to Lady Tsunade." Naruto scowled. "I'm not a glass vase, Kakashi." "No," Kakashi said. "You're a very loud mystery with bad impulse control. That's what concerns me." Under other circumstances, Naruto would have had a comeback ready. A great one, probably. Instead, he just stood there with the air humming around him, watching the cleanly severed training post lying in the grass like evidence from someone else's life. He nodded once. Then he turned and walked away before Kakashi could see how much effort was suddenly taking. Konoha felt too slow. That was the first truly frightening thing. Naruto moved through the village with his hands jammed deep in his jacket, shoulders hunched, trying to pretend nothing was wrong while everything around him dragged like a dream underwater. People crossed streets. Merchants unpacked crates. Two academy kids argued over a bent Shuriken practice target. Somewhere, a dog barked twice. It all looked normal. It all felt delayed. Naruto's senses kept catching on details that should have slipped past him. The pulse in a civilian's neck as she laughed at a fruit stand. The faint creak of a sign hanging from a noodle shop 3 buildings away. The flutter of a pigeon taking off from a rooftop before its wings fully spread. He reached Ikaraku without remembering the route. Chuchai looked up with a smile that immediately faltered. "Naruto, you look like you lost a fight with a thundercloud." Naruto dropped onto the stool. "Miso ramen, extra pork, and maybe if I eat enough, my body will stop trying to become electricity." Chuchai blinked. Iame leaned out from the kitchen. "That's either the weirdest joke you've made this week or a real medical problem." Naruto rested both elbows on the counter and pressed his palms to his eyes. "Honestly, could go either way." He wanted normal, needed it. Needed steam in his face, and the smell of broth, and the stupid comfort of the same bowl he'd eaten 1,000 times. He needed something in the world to still make sense. The bowl landed in front of him a minute later, rich and hot, and familiar enough that his shoulders loosened by a fraction. He grabbed the chopsticks. They snapped in his fingers. Naruto stared at the 2 broken halves. I-Aim slowly slid a second pair across the counter. Naruto took them with exaggerated care. You saw nothing. Chuchai folded his arms. I saw a concerning lack of respect for chopsticks. Naruto managed a weak grin and bent over the bowl. The first bite helped. The second helped less. By the third, the hum inside him had climbed high enough that even the steam rising from the ramen looked strange, every swirl visible, every tiny current twisting through the air. His hands shook again. He set the chopsticks down. You should get checked, Chuchai said quietly. Naruto looked up. The ramen stand owner's face was gentle, but serious in the way only a few people in Naruto's life ever managed without making him want to argue. Kakashi already told me to see Granny Tsunade. Then maybe listen. Naruto blew out a breath. Yeah, he paid, left half the bowl untouched, and ignored Chuchai's frown because that, more than anything, proved the day had gone horribly wrong. Naruto Uzumaki did not leave ramen unfinished. By the time he got home, golden static was flickering across his vision whenever he blinked. He shut the door behind him and leaned against it hard enough to rattle the frame. The apartment was dim and quiet. Usually that felt lonely. Today, it felt like mercy. He kicked off his sandals, stumbled to the center of the room, and sat cross-legged on the floor because standing seemed suddenly like an overrated activity. He tried to breathe. In, out, in, out. The hum did not lessen. If anything, it synchronized with him, with his pulse, with his breath, with something deeper. Naruto closed his eyes and did the one thing he had learned to do whenever his own head became too crowded. He dropped into the mindscape. The first thing he noticed was the dark. Usually the place inside the seal looked like some impossible underground corridor drowned ankle-deep in water and lit by a sick red glow. Pipes, stone, shadows, the kind of place built by someone who thought welcoming was a personal insult. Now it was almost black, not empty black. Storm black. The second thing he noticed was the lightning. Golden threads crawled over the massive seal gates in thin, branching lines, crackling silently across the bars, racing down chains thicker than tree trunks. They did not behave like chakra. They did not flare and fade. They moved with intent, mapping old, imprisoning metal with quick, searching intelligence, and Kurama was sitting back in the darkness, perfectly still, watching them. Naruto had seen the nine tails angry, mocking, bored, contemptuous, murderous, amused in a way that usually led to somebody's property damage. He had seen the ancient fox grin like the end of an argument and snarl like a natural disaster. He had almost never seen him quiet. Kurama's massive eyes tracked one fork of gold as it slid along a chain and vanished into the black water below. Naruto stepped closer. Okay, he said, trying for normal and landing somewhere near brittle. That's new! Kurama did not look at him immediately. When he did, there was something in his expression Naruto did not have a better word for than awe, and under it, buried deep enough that most people would have missed it, fear. Naruto stopped. The silence stretched. Finally, Kurama rumbled, "You brought it in." Naruto looked around as if a person named it might be hiding behind one of the seal posts. Super helpful, thanks. Kurama ignored that. It was sleeping. What was? The fox's tails shifted once behind him, each movement slow and heavy enough to move the dark water in silent waves. Something older than the shinobi method, older than the way humans shaped chakra into patterns and called it mastery. Naruto frowned. That sounds like the setup to a really annoying old scroll. Kurama's lips peeled back from one fang. Do not joke because you are afraid. Naruto bristled automatically. I'm not afraid. Golden lightning flashed across the bars between them, bright enough to throw both their shadows across the flooded floor. Kurama finally leaned forward, enormous face emerging from the dark. Naruto. The name landed with unusual weight. Naruto's mouth closed, Kurama's voice lowered. Your coils are not merely changing, they are accelerating. The pathways in your body are being forced into resonance with an energy that does not move like chakra moves. Chakra circulates, it builds, it releases. This. His gaze flicked to the crawling gold. This arrives. Naruto looked at the chains. You know what it is. Kurama was silent long enough to be an answer. Then, I know what it resembles. Naruto stepped closer to the bars, ignoring the cold water around his ankles. Then tell me. Kurama's eyes narrowed, ancient and unreadable. No, Naruto stared. No, you are not ready for the name of it. That lit Naruto up faster than the lightning. Since when do you get to decide what I'm ready for? Since I am the one inside you who remembers what happens when humans touch forces they mistake for tools. The words echoed. Naruto drew back half a step without meaning to. Kurama saw it. His expression changed again, not softer exactly, but less like a blade. It is not your enemy, the fox said. Really convincing tone there. It is not, Kurama repeated, but neither is it tame, and if you chase it like you chase every problem with your head down and your heart first, it will tear you apart before you understand where the pieces went. Naruto looked away. That more than the warning made the fear in his chest settle into something heavier. Because Kurama wasn't mocking him, wasn't baiting him, wasn't enjoying this, he was worried. Naruto exhaled slowly. Kakashi thinks it's some kind of chakra disorder. Kurama actually laughed then, low and humorless. The sound rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. Of course he does. A shinobi sees a storm and asks which hand sign failed. Naruto opened his mouth to retort, and the world shifted, not the mindscape, something underneath it. A pulse so fast it barely existed. The golden lines on the chains brightened at once. Kurama's ears flattened. Naruto turned sharply. Someone was standing at the far end of the flooded corridor. He had not been there a second ago. Tall, lean, half obscured by darkness that somehow did not touch the red of him. It was not a cloak, not armor. A fitted shape lit at the edges by the same impossible gold crawling over the seal. The figure stood relaxed, one hand at his side, head slightly bowed, as if he had arrived exactly where he expected to be. Naruto's body went cold. Kurama rose, enormous and abrupt, water exploding outward in waves. A growl built in his throat deep enough to shake the iron bars. The man in red lifted his head. Naruto couldn't see his face clearly. Not fully. It flickered at the edges, there and not there, like memory trying to become real. Then the figure looked straight at Naruto and smiled, not cruelly, not kindly either, knowingly. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, off the walls, through the water, under Naruto's skin. You were always the fastest thing alive, he said. You just didn't know what speed was yet. Naruto's breath caught. What are you? The man was gone. No smoke, no displacement. No dramatic fade. Gone. The corridor was empty. Kurama's growl had turned into something lower, more dangerous. Not for Naruto, for the absence itself. Naruto spun in place. Did you see that? Kurama did not answer. Kurama? The fox stared into the dark where the figure had stood, every line of him tense. Yes. Naruto waited. Kurama slowly lowered himself back into the shadows. Leave. That snapped Naruto's head around. What? Now, you don't get to go? Kurama's voice cracked through the chamber like a striking bell. You are no use to me panicking in here. Naruto's eyes narrowed. I'm not panicking, you should be. That shut him up for half a second. Then Naruto pointed toward the end of the corridor. Some weird red ghost just walks into my seal, says something dramatic and vanishes, and your answer is get out. Kurama bared his teeth. My answer is that the thing touching your soul has begun to answer back. If you want to survive long enough to learn why, you will wake up, go somewhere open, and test what your body is becoming before it decides for you. Naruto stared at him, then at the chains bright with gold, then at his own hands. The hum had followed him into the mindscape. Maybe it had started there. He wasn't sure which possibility he hated more. Naruto backed away a step. You'd better start explaining things soon. Kurama's eyes gleamed in the dark. Control first, explanations after. Naruto scowled, but the chamber was already dissolving around him. The dark folded into light, the water into air, the chains into the ringing silence of his apartment. He opened his eyes on the floor. His heartbeat was too fast. No, not too fast, too loud. There was a difference now, and he hated that he knew it. Naruto pushed himself up, grabbed his jacket, and went for the window instead of the door. If his body wanted open space, it was getting open space. If his body wanted answers, too bad. Naruto wanted them first. He ended up outside the village walls where the ground flattened into a broad training plain broken by scattered stones and old crater scars from a lifetime of shinobi practicing things that sensible people would classify as public hazards. The sky was turning orange with late afternoon light. Good. No crowds, no eyes, no chance of atomizing Chuchai's ramen stand by accident. Naruto stopped in the center of the field and rolled his shoulders once. The hum answered immediately, eager. He looked down at his hands. Okay, he muttered to himself. We're doing this the normal way. No hand signs. No clones. No experiments with touching random objects, because once per day was enough for that particular brand of nightmare. Something simpler. Something he knew. Something that had become part of him so deeply he trusted it more than almost any jutsu in his arsenal, Rasengan. Naruto extended his right hand. Usually he needed a clone for the early stages once, long ago. Then he learned one-handed formation, then mastery. He knew the feel of it better than his own reflection, chakra rotation, compression, stability, shape. He drew in a breath and reached for the center point. Chakra moved, so did the gold. The instant he began rotating the sphere, the new energy inside him surged forward with predatory speed, slipping into the forming jutsu before he could reject it. Blue vanished under gold. The air around his palm screamed. Naruto's eyes widened. The orb forming above his hand was not spiraling, it was vibrating. Not visibly, not in any way ordinary sight should have been able to track. But the space around it warped with microscopic violence, air peeling back from its surface in concentric distortions. Golden light gathered into a perfect sphere, dense and bright enough to cast long shadows across the field. Tiny arcs of lightning circled it like rings. Naruto clenched his jaw and tried to stabilize it. It stabilized him instead. For one impossible second, he understood the jutsu differently, not as a spinning mass of chakra, but as countless particles held in furious agreement. Every part moving so fast it became still. Every edge precise. Every vibration aligned. The golden orb hummed in his palm with terrifying calm. Naruto swallowed. This is definitely not a Rasengan. The ground beneath his feet began to shiver. The sphere dipped. Pure instinct made Naruto thrust his hand downward and away from himself. The orb touched earth. There was no explosion, no blast wave, no shower of debris, no sound at all. A perfect sphere of ground simply ceased to exist. Dirt, stone, roots, and buried pebbles vanished in a clean, glass-smooth hollow 3 meters across, as if a god had pressed a fingertip into reality and removed the part it didn't like. The edges did not smoke. They gleamed. The silence afterward was worse than any detonation. Naruto stood frozen, staring into the impossible absence at his feet. A breeze crossed the field a second later and carried loose dust into the smooth cavity. It swirled once, uncertain, then settled at the bottom. Naruto's hand was still raised. Thin strands of gold crackled over his fingers and disappeared beneath his skin. Far away, thunder rolled across an otherwise clear sky. Naruto looked up slowly. The last light of sunset caught in his blue eyes and turned them sharp. Something inside him, something vast, electric, and newly awake, answered the distant thunder like a promise. And for the first time since the morning began, Naruto understood one thing with absolute certainty. His life had not gone wrong. It had changed. And whatever had just opened inside him was only getting started. Chapter 2. Frequency, the mechanics of molecular ninjutsu. Naruto did not sleep. He tried. That counted for something. He lay on top of the blankets in his apartment with one arm over his eyes and listened to the village breathe through the walls. A pipe clicked 3 rooms over. Wind pushed softly against the window frame. Somewhere downstairs, someone turned in bed and muttered in their sleep. The refrigerator hummed. A moth tapped twice against the glass. Every sound was unbearable, not because it was loud, because it was precise. Before, the world had always reached him as a whole. Voices, footsteps, wind, traffic, birds layered together into something ordinary. Now each detail arrived isolated and distinct, too sharp to ignore. He could hear the tiny rattle in the old ceiling fan he'd been meaning to fix for months. He could hear the fabric of his own sleeve shift when he flexed his hand. He could hear his pulse in his wrist. Worst of all, he could feel the hum. It never really stopped. It sank low when he stayed still, almost manageable, a golden undercurrent threading through his chakra coils. But every time he thought too hard about it, or about the hollow, perfect crater he'd carved out of the earth, without an explosion, the energy brightened again, alert and eager, like it was waiting for him to stop pretending this was temporary. Naruto rolled onto his side and stared at the dark. Kurama had refused to explain. Kakashi had called it a chakra disorder. The man in red, if he'd even been real, had spoken like this, had always been part of Naruto, like the answer wasn't what's happening to me. But why didn't this happen sooner? Naruto hated questions he couldn't punch. By dawn, he'd made 3 decisions. First, he was going to Tsunade before Kakashi dragged him there like a malfunctioning explosive tag. Second, he was not telling everyone yet. Sakura would worry. Sai would say something technically helpful and emotionally unsettling. Yamato would build a whole lecture around the phrase, structural instability. Shikamaru would stare at him for 10 seconds, and then say, with annoying accuracy, that the whole thing was troublesome in a way that suggested Naruto had personally invented new categories of trouble just to keep life interesting. Third, until he understood what this power was, he was not going to use it carelessly. That third one lasted almost 40 minutes. Tsunade's office smelled like paper, ink, medicinal herbs, and the faint lingering threat of property damage. Shizune stood beside the desk with a stack of reports in both hands, and the expression of a woman who had accepted that paperwork was a form of warfare. Tsunade herself was seated behind the desk, pen in hand, gaze sharp enough to make most shinobi reconsider their life choices before speaking. Naruto did not knock. He phased halfway through the closed door by accident, panicked, stumbled back into full solidity, and then came through properly looking like he had just lost a fight with architecture. Shizune yelped. Tsunade's pen snapped in her fingers. Naruto threw both hands up. Before anyone says anything, I know. There was a long silence. Then Tsunade leaned back in her chair and said very evenly, "Explain why you just insulted the laws of matter in my office." Naruto shut the door behind him with exaggerated care. He said. "Medical emergency?" Shizune recovered first. "That is not a category people are supposed to announce while emerging from a door." Tsunade stood. Naruto had seen the 5th Hokage furious. He had seen her exasperated, drunk, grieving, protective, murderous, and once deeply offended by instant ramen packaging. Right now she looked something more dangerous than angry, attentive. "Kakashi sent a report an hour ago," Tsunade said. "He described hand sign failure, involuntary acceleration, abnormal chakra dispersal, and possible phasing. I assumed he was exaggerating one part of it." Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. "He wasn't." Tsunade came around the desk. "Sit." Naruto obeyed at once. That was how Shizune knew it was serious. Tsunade put 2 fingers against Naruto's wrist. Chakra flowed from her in a cool, controlled stream, probing with a healer's precision. Naruto tried not to flinch. Her expression changed almost immediately, then hardened. "Shizune," she said without looking away, "seal the room." Shizune moved fast. Privacy barriers snapped into place over the walls and windows with practiced efficiency. Sound-dampening tags flared once and settled. Naruto watched all of it with a sinking feeling. "That bad?" he asked. Tsunade's eyes remained closed as her chakra mapped his system. "Worse than bad, more interesting than bad, which in my experience usually becomes catastrophic if ignored. Comforting." "Quiet," Naruto quieted. Tsunade traced the flow higher, following the pathways through his arm, shoulder, neck. Once, twice, a third time, then she opened her eyes and stepped back. "I need blood." Naruto blinked. Wow, you really know how to make a checkup feel personal. Shizune was already there with a tray. A minute later, Naruto was watching his blood bead into a vial while Tsunade examined the samples with chakra-enhanced sight. The room stayed silent so long that Naruto finally cracked. Granny. Tsunade didn't look up. Again with that title, and I'll diagnose you with blunt force trauma. Naruto pointed at the vial. You found something? Yes. Is it fixable? That made her pause. Tsunade set the vial down carefully. I'm not sure fix is the right word. Naruto stared at her. Shizune glanced between them, then quietly moved to the side wall, giving Tsunade space to speak and Naruto room to react badly. She knew them both too well. Tsunade folded her arms. Your chakra network isn't damaged, Naruto exhaled. Then Tsunade added, It's changing. He inhaled right back in. What does that mean? It means your pathways are vibrating, Naruto frowned. That sounds fake. It sounds impossible, Tsunade corrected, which is not the same thing. She crouched to eye level, voice sharpening into clinical precision. Human chakra coils aren't supposed to oscillate at this frequency. Not ever. Chakra can fluctuate in density, output, elemental alignment, even emotional resonance. But what's happening in your body isn't just chakra fluctuation. Your cells are phasing between energetic states. Naruto stared blankly. Tsunade sighed once through her nose, the sigh of a genius forced to simplify for someone whose best subject had never been patience. Your body, she said, is moving faster than your matter should be able to sustain. Naruto's face went still. Shizune spoke softly now, filling in around Tsunade's words. It's like your physical structure is oscillating between solid and not quite solid. Naruto slowly held up his hand, turning it over as golden static flickered faintly beneath the skin of his knuckles. That's why I went through the post. Tsunade nodded once. Naruto looked at the door he'd half-stepped through, then back at her. And if it keeps getting worse? Tsunade's answer came without hesitation. If the frequency rises too high without control, your body will vibrate apart. The sentence hit the room like a dropped blade. Naruto didn't move. Shizune's mouth tightened. She clearly hated saying or hearing things like that out loud. Naruto laughed once, not because it was funny, because the alternative was letting the silence become real. Okay, he said. So, not ideal? Tsunade did not smile. No, not ideal. He looked away. Through the sealed window barrier, he could see only a distorted shimmer of daylight. The village beyond it might as well have been another world. For a moment, he imagined it happening exactly the way Tsunade described his body losing cohesion, bones and skin and chakra, and everything he was scattering into light because he moved one step too far or thought too fast, or let that golden hum climb higher than he could hold. His fingers curled against his knee. Fear arrived then, not loud, not dramatic, cold. Tsunade saw it. Her voice shifted just slightly. I'm telling you because I need you to understand the stakes, she said. Not because this is a death sentence. Naruto looked back at her. I've seen bodies broken in every way this world permits, Tsunade continued. I know the difference between collapse and transition. This is not random failure. There's a pattern to it. Your system is adapting to something. The question is whether you adapt fast enough to stay ahead of it. Naruto swallowed. So what do I do? Tsunade straightened. You stop trying to use your old control methods as if nothing changed. That landed harder than he expected, because she was right. Since yesterday, he had treated every failure like a glitch, a mistake. A version of chakra control he could just bully into behaving if he repeated the basics hard enough. But the hand signs weren't failing because he'd gotten sloppy. They were failing because his body had changed the rules. Tsunade moved to her desk, pulled a blank sheet of paper from a stack, and set it in front of him. Channel chakra into that, she said. Naruto obeyed. The paper fluttered. Then its edges began to buzz. Golden light flashed over his fingertips. The sheet did not split, burn, tear, or crumple. Instead, the fibers loosened all at once, unraveling into a neat drift of white strands that settled over the desk like snow. Naruto blinked. Shizune blinked. Tsunade looked grimly satisfied. Exactly. Naruto stared at the ruined paper. I didn't do anything. You did what you always do. Tsunade said, you reached for chakra, but your output is no longer translating through conventional channels. Conventional channels, Naruto repeated weakly. You're trying to shape a river with tools built for smoke. That was annoyingly poetic for a medical explanation. Tsunade took the chair behind her desk again and steepled her fingers. Listen carefully. Hand signs were never the source of ninjutsu. They're a focusing method, a neurological shorthand. They align intent, physical pattern, and chakra flow. Naruto frowned. I know what hand signs do. No. Tsunade said, you know what they did for you. That shut him up. She pointed at him. Right now, your body itself is acting as the focusing medium. Your pathways are oscillating too fast for traditional sign-locked control to stabilize. That means if you want to use jutsu safely, you'll need to stop relying on your hands to frame the pattern and start learning how to adjust the frequency directly. Naruto stared, then narrowed his eyes. You're telling me I have to learn a whole new way to use chakra? I'm telling you, Tsunade said, that the old way might kill you. That ended the debate. Naruto sat there for a long moment, mind racing faster than he liked to admit. He thought of the hand signs dissolving in gold sparks, the posts splitting cleanly apart, the craterless sphere of vanished earth, the man in red. Then he asked the only question left that mattered. How do I train it? Tsunade leaned back and smiled, not kindly, the way instructors smiled when they knew the next part was going to hurt. The first exercise was a wall, not a metaphorical one. An actual reinforced training wall in one of Konoha Hospital's sealed lower training chambers, designed for controlled medical rehabilitation, Earth-style impact testing, and, according to Tsunade, idiots who only understand their own bodies after slamming into something. Naruto stood 6 feet from it in a sleeveless training shirt with ceiling markers painted in lines across his arms, chest, and temples. Shizune monitored from the side with a clipboard and enough suppression tags to make the room feel mildly insulted. Tsunade stood opposite him, arms crossed. Again, she said. Naruto glared at the wall like it had personally offended his bloodline. This would be easier if you stopped saying it like you enjoy it. I do enjoy it. He should have expected that. The first lesson had not been phase through the wall, it had been feel the wall. Tsunade had made him place his palm flat against the stone and reach not for chakra volume, but for rhythm. Everything has a frequency, she'd said. Muscle, bone, air, stone, chakra. Your problem is that you're forcing output without sensing alignment first. At first Naruto had found the idea stupid. Then he'd touched the wall and heard it not with his ears, with whatever this new sense was becoming. The stone held itself together in tiny, repeating patterns. Dense, slow, stable, a constant molecular hum so low and deep it almost felt like silence. Compared to the golden vibration inside Naruto, it was ancient, heavy, patient, like a mountain reduced into one note and taught to stay there forever. Now, on attempt number 16, Tsunade expected him to match it. Naruto pressed 2 fingers to the wall and closed his eyes. Breathe. The hum in his coils rose, not outward. Inward. Controlled. He imagined the golden energy narrowing, smoothing, stretching itself across the same rhythm the stone held, not force, not speed, alignment. For 1 second, the wall no longer felt solid. Naruto stepped. His shoulder passed 3 inches into the stone before instinct screamed and he jerked back out with a yelp. Shizune scribbled something. Partial success. Naruto rubbed his shoulder. It felt cold. Tsunade nodded. Good. That means your body caught the transition point before panic broke your control. Naruto scowled. Glad my terror was medically useful. Your terror is often useful, Tsunade said. You just rarely notice. The next attempt was cleaner. The one after that sent his hand halfway through the wall up to the wrist. By the 7th repetition, Naruto managed to push his forearm through solid stone and hold it there for nearly 2 seconds before concentration broke. He yanked his arm out and stared at it. No injury, no crushing pressure. Just the ghost memory of cold and the bizarre sensation that the wall had not resisted him because, For that brief moment, resistance had become irrelevant. Naruto looked at Tsunade. "So I'm not becoming a ghost." "No," she said dryly. "You're becoming much more troublesome than a ghost." That almost sounded affectionate, almost. "Now the second principle," she said. Naruto groaned. "There's a second principle. There are dozens. You're getting 2 today." She moved to the center of the room and tossed him a reinforced training baton made of dense chakra conductive alloy. Naruto caught it. "Objects have stable frequencies," Tsunade said. "You can match them to phase through them." Or she picked up a second baton. "You can deliberately mismatch at the moment of contact." Before Naruto could ask, she struck the edge of a stone training pillar. The baton did not dent the surface. The pillar shattered from the inside, not explosively. The crack spread outward in a perfect branching web, and the entire center section collapsed into a ring of broken fragments, as though the structural bonds had all agreed to fail at once. Naruto's eyes widened. Tsunade lowered the baton. "Surface force is ordinary impact. Internal resonance is something else entirely." Naruto looked from the pillar to his own baton. "You can do that." "I'm faking it," Tsunade said. "Badly, with chakra pulse timing and monstrous control." Her gaze sharpened. "You may be able to do it naturally." That landed. Naruto stepped toward a fresh stone block installed near the far wall. He turned the baton once in his hand. This felt dangerous in a way he understood immediately, which was saying something, not because it was big. Because it was subtle. A punch broke what it touched. This might break what it reached through. "Focus on the contact point," Tsunade said. "Do not flood the whole strike. Tiny mismatch, short burst. If you overdo it, you'll turn the block into gravel." Naruto lifted the baton, breathed. Felt the stone, felt his own hum answer. Then, at the instant before impact, he let the golden current slip out of sync. The strike landed with a soft, ugly sound. The stone block did not move. Then a thin line raced through its center, then another. Then 6 more. The entire block collapsed inward into a neat pile of fragments no larger than finger joints. Naruto froze. Shizune lowered her clipboard very slowly. Tsunade looked almost pleased. Naruto stared at the broken block. "I barely hit it." "That," Tsunade said, "is exactly the point." He looked at his own hand. Kurama's warning echoed again. "It is not your enemy." "But neither is it tame." Naruto exhaled, then grinned. He couldn't help it, because fear was there, yes. But beneath it, beneath the cold possibility of losing control, something else had started to rise. Understanding. Not enough, not close, but the first edge of it. This power wasn't random. It obeyed rules, new rules, strange rules, terrifying rules, but rules. And Naruto had built half his life on taking impossible things and learning their shape the hard way. Tsunade saw the grin and pointed a finger at him. "Do not get excited. Too late." "I mean it, brat. This kind of ability will tempt you into thinking precision is optional because speed makes mistakes invisible. It doesn't." Her expression grew hard again. "If you lose control of that output in close combat, you won't just hurt someone. You'll unravel them." Naruto's grin faded. He nodded once. Tsunade held the silence until she was sure the warning stayed lodged where it needed to. Then she said, "Good. Now we take it out of the hospital before you vibrate my walls into abstract art." By sunset, Naruto was at an abandoned training sector on the edge of the village, sleeves rolled up, sweat damp against his spine, facing a row of reinforced dummy targets. Tsunade had refused to come. That was its own warning. Instead, she'd sent a final instruction through Shizune. Do not practice alone for longer than 1 hour. Stop the moment you feel your heart rhythm slipping. No full Rasengan attempts. No experimentation with clones. No high-output movement bursts. Naruto had agreed to all of it. Then he had immediately started experimenting, because there was a difference between disobeying recklessly and disobeying with educational intent. At least that was what he told himself. He began with fists. Not taijutsu forms, not full combinations. Just controlled contact. In, touch, frequency, pulse, withdraw. Again. 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 The first dummy splintered at the rib section, the second lost an arm with such surgical neatness that Naruto actually circled around it to make sure he hadn't somehow cut it conventionally. The third held together on the outside and caved inward at the torso, as if the strike had bypassed the shell entirely and shaken apart the structure beneath. Naruto stepped back, breathing hard. He could feel the pattern now, the difference between surface force and internal resonance, between matching and mismatching, between phasing past a thing and reaching into it. He flexed his hand. A faint gold thread spun between his knuckles and vanished. That gave him an idea, which was usually a bad sign. Naruto crouched and pressed 2 fingers into the dirt. He fed chakra not outward, not explosively, but into a fine, compressed stream, drawing it up and around his fist the way he might wrap bandages or wind an invisible cord. The golden energy responded instantly, spinning itself thinner and thinner until it became something like filament. Not visible all at once, more like flashes outlining a shape too fast to fully see. A thread, high-frequency chakra thread. Naruto stood slowly. His fist now wore a loose halo of vibrating gold so fine it looked almost like heat haze. "Okay," he murmured. "That's definitely something." He faced the final dummy in the row. This one was heavier, built to absorb blunt trauma. Naruto stepped in and punched. The contact made almost no sound. The dummy froze. A second later, every internal support beam snapped at once. The outer shell remained standing for half a heartbeat before collapsing into separate sections that hit the ground around a hollow center. Naruto's breath caught. He looked at his fist. Then down at the ruined dummy, a strike that didn't hit the surface. A strike that sent the vibration through. He remembered Neji. The precision of the gentle fist. The way Hyuga techniques bypassed muscle and bone to target the system beneath, except this was not shutting down chakra points. This was making the structure resonate until it failed. Naruto's eyes widened slowly. "Vibration strike," he said aloud. The name felt right immediately, simple. Brutal, honest. He grinned despite himself. Then a voice behind him said, "You named it before you understood it. That's very like you." Naruto spun. Jiraiya stood on the training wall, arms folded, expression unusually unreadable beneath the red lines on his face. Naruto blinked. "Were you spying on me?" Jiraiya snorted. "Of course I was spying on you. If my godson starts walking through walls and turning hospital reports into bedtime stories, I'm not going to investigate." Naruto relaxed a fraction. "How much did you see?" "Enough to know Tsunade isn't overreacting." Jiraiya hopped down from the wall and approached the wrecked training dummy with a low whistle. "And enough to know this isn't just some accident." Naruto's shoulders stiffened. "You know something." Jiraiya crouched beside the collapsed dummy and picked up one broken internal brace. The cut wasn't visible because there wasn't a cut, just structural failure from within. "I know rumors," he said. Naruto made a face. "That's never a good opening." "No," Jiraiya admitted, "it rarely is." He reached into his robe and pulled out an old scroll case bound with faded Uzumaki sealing marks. Not standard village archives. Older, denser, clan work. The kind of script that felt like it had teeth even while rolled shut. Naruto's eyes narrowed. "I pulled some things from a restricted archive after Kakashi's report," Jiraiya said. "Most of it reads like myth wrapped around bad translation and worse historical record keeping. But there are references, fragments, mentions of a bloodline phenomenon buried in old Uzumaki texts." He tapped the seal on the case. "Sokuryoku no Kai," he said, "the blood of pure speed." The phrase landed strange in the air. Naruto stared. Jiraiya continued, quieter now. "Most historians dismissed it as symbolic. A poetic way of describing unusual chakra reserves, accelerated healing, maybe sensory talent. But if even half these records are genuine," he looked pointedly at the destroyed target, "then maybe nobody understood what they were actually describing." Naruto felt the hum inside him answer the words. Blood of pure speed, not just speed as motion, speed as nature, as inheritance, as something sleeping in a line of people who had always been known more for vitality, sealing, and absurd stubbornness than anything remotely like this. Why now? Naruto asked. Jiraiya's gaze sharpened. That's the right question. Naruto folded his arms. You got an answer? Not one I trust yet. Jiraiya stood and faced him fully. But I do know this, he said. Whatever's waking up in you, it isn't random. And if it's tied to the Uzumaki bloodline, then there may be older methods, rituals, control models, meditations, maybe even entire combat theories that were lost because nobody ever triggered the conditions strongly enough to preserve them. Naruto's mind jumped immediately ahead. So there could be scrolls on how to use it. There could be scrolls on how not to die using it, Jiraiya corrected. Which should interest you more, Naruto shrugged. Both can be true. Jiraiya barked a laugh despite himself, then he sobered. Show me the wall trick, Naruto frowned. Now. So Naruto did. He approached the storage shed at the edge of the field, placed one palm on the outer wall and closed his eyes. The frequency of the wood was lighter than stone. Faster, fibrous, less uniform, easier to read. Oddly enough, he matched it, stepped, and passed through the wall cleanly. The sensation of cold brushed over his skin again for the span of a single breath. Then he was inside the shed. He turned. Jiraiya was grinning like someone who had just watched the universe admit it could still surprise him. Again, the Sannin said. Naruto phased back out. Then, before Jiraiya could ask, Naruto shifted stance and drove a vibration strike into one of the outer support posts. The wood didn't splinter outward. The internal grain lines shattered first, and the post folded with an ugly groan, half the shed sagging to one side. Jiraiya's grin disappeared. Okay, he said, that one we're handling carefully. Naruto flexed his hand. Yeah, can you use it in motion? Naruto thought of the trench he'd carved by accident. Probably. That answer inspires exactly zero confidence. It's an honest answer. Jiraiya sighed and rubbed his forehead. Great. Honesty? A rare and unpleasant development. Naruto smirked. Then both of them felt it, a pulse. Not from the ground, not from the sky, from Naruto. The golden light under his skin flashed once, bright enough to cast thin lines across his forearms. For a split second, his chakra points blazed not individually, but all together, merging into one impossible pattern too fast for ordinary perception to separate. Jiraiya's expression changed instantly. He had seen the Byakugan before. Knew what chakra points looked like when charted, mapped, targeted. What he saw now with his own sensory training wasn't the same, but it was enough to make the hair rise on his arms. Naruto's system was becoming a blur. Jiraiya took one step back. Naruto, he said carefully, how stable do you feel right now? Naruto opened his mouth. Then stopped, because for the last few minutes, without quite realizing it, the world had been slowing again. Not as badly as yesterday, not like drowning in delayed motion. More like everything around him had become slightly easier to predict, each movement exposing its next shape before it happened. The breeze touched the grass. He saw the bend before the motion fully arrived. A leaf fell from the damaged shed roof. He tracked its rotation without trying. And behind Jiraiya, 50 meters away at the tree line, someone was watching. Neji Hyuga stepped out a second later, expression as composed as ever and eyes already active with pale intensity. Naruto frowned. How long have you been there? Neji's gaze remained fixed on him. Long enough. He said, to confirm that I have absolutely no read on what your chakra network is doing. Jiraiya exhaled sharply through his nose. Of course it's a Hyuga. Neji ignored him. His focus stayed on Naruto, and for the first time since Naruto had known him, there was no faint edge of certainty beneath the calm. No assumption that vision meant understanding. With the Byakugan, Neji said, every chakra point has distinction, shape, movement, flow. Naruto shifted uncomfortably. And, Neji's eyes narrowed, and yours are vibrating so fast they appear as a single field of light. The training ground went quiet. Naruto looked at his hands. Jiraiya looked at the old Uzumaki scroll case at his side. And somewhere far above them, beyond the clouds, thunder rolled again across a clear evening sky. Naruto felt the answer in his bones before anyone spoke it. This was getting bigger. Much bigger. and whatever came next would not let him keep pretending he had time to ease into it. The golden hum inside him rose in response, steady, precise, alive. Chapter 2 had taught him one truth clearly. He was not losing control because his body was failing. He was losing control because he was still trying to live at yesterday's speed, and tomorrow was already coming too fast. Chapter 3, Still motion training the speed force, Sage Mode Jiraiya stopped joking the next morning. That was how Naruto knew things had gotten serious. Usually, the Toad Sage treated danger like it was a sparring partner he found entertaining. He mocked first, explained second, and only dropped the act when the ground had already started exploding. But at sunrise, when Naruto arrived at the east gate with a half-packed bag, bad sleep, and the faint golden hum still threading under his skin, Jiraiya was already there on the road waiting. No grin, no dramatic entrance. No, I, the great sage nonsense, just a travel cloak, a sealed scroll tube on his back, and a look that said he'd spent the night reading things he wished he hadn't found. Naruto slowed as he approached. "You look weird," he said. Jiraiya snorted. "You phased through a wall, turned a training block into gravel from the inside, and made a Hyuga say I don't understand with his whole chest. You don't get to call anyone weird this week." Naruto adjusted the strap over his shoulder. "So we're really leaving the village." "We are really leaving the village. For how long?" "As long as it takes." Naruto glanced back once at the waking rooftops of Konoha. The village looked ordinary in the early light, smoke beginning to rise, windows opening, shinobi on patrol rotation. Somewhere in there Kakashi was probably pretending he didn't worry, and Tsunade was pretending she hadn't already prepared 5 backup medical plans in case Naruto returned partially converted into living lightning. He looked forward again. "You're not telling anyone where?" "Tsunade knows the general direction." Jiraiya started walking. "That's all." Naruto fell into step beside him. "You think this is that dangerous?" Jiraiya didn't answer immediately. Road dust shifted beneath their sandals. Birds lifted from the power lines in a flutter. The sky was a clean, pale blue that made the whole morning feel deceptively harmless. Then Jiraiya said, "I think if this power keeps escalating inside the village, you'll either hurt someone by accident or spend so much energy trying not to hurt anyone that you'll stop learning how it works." Naruto's jaw tightened. "That bad, huh?" Jiraiya gave him a sideways look. "Naruto, you are currently the only person alive I know who can accidentally erase the ground without making a sound. You tell me." That was fair, annoyingly fair. They traveled fast but not recklessly, heading northwest out of Fire Country through forested routes that saw little civilian traffic. Jiraiya kept the pace steady instead of hard. That was deliberate. Naruto could feel it. Every few hours, the older man would ask a question that sounded casual and wasn't. "How's your heartbeat?" "Normal." "How's normal feel?" "Like you asking dumb questions." "That means stable." "Good." "Or any phasing while walking?" "No." "Any visual drag?" "What does that even mean?" "When the world feels too slow." Naruto had hesitated at that one. A little. Jiraiya nodded like he'd expected it and changed nothing about the pace, which somehow made Naruto more nervous than if he'd panicked. By the second day, the forest had thinned into rocky rises and broken terrain. By the third, they'd entered a mountain region old enough that the trees grew twisted and far apart, roots clutching stone instead of soil. Rivers here ran colder. The air felt cleaner and stranger, thin with height and heavy with the kind of quiet that made people lower their voices without knowing why. Naruto didn't like it at first. Then he realized the hum inside him did. The higher they climbed, the more distinct the world became. Not slower. Clearer. The wind did not strike the cliffs at random, it folded around them in patterns. Water did not simply rush downhill, it oscillated over stone and hollow like a repeating phrase. Even silence had texture up here. Density. Space. On the evening of the 4th day, Jiraiya led him into a basin hidden between sheer ridges, invisible from any ordinary path. A lake sat at its center, still and dark as polished glass. Thin curtains of mist drifted over the surface. Small prayer stones old, weather-worn, not from any current village tradition, stood in a rough outer ring around the water. Naruto stopped. He could feel the place before he understood it. Nature energy. Not as something abstract, the way Fukasaku had once described sage mode in theory. Here it pressed against the skin. It was in the water, in the stone, in the roots sunk deep through the mountain. Dense, undiluted, ancient enough that the air itself seemed to breathe differently. Jiraiya watched him notice. This is where we train. Naruto tore his gaze away from the lake. You're kidding. Nope, for sage mode. For something worse. That got Naruto's attention fully. Jiraiya stepped down toward the lakeshore and set his pack beside one of the old stone markers. Traditional sage mode takes stillness, he said. You gather nature energy by becoming part of the environment, by letting your internal flow stop fighting the world long enough to sync with it. Naruto folded his arms. You've explained that before. You couldn't do it before. Naruto made a face. You really know how to motivate people? Jiraiya ignored him. Now the problem is different. Your body no longer struggles with movement because movement has become your default state. Even standing still, you're not actually still. Naruto looked down at his own hands. That was true. Even now, beneath the skin, he could feel the golden vibration whispering through his coils like a second pulse. Jiraiya's voice lowered. If you want to survive this power, you need a stabilizing framework stronger than ordinary chakra control. Nature energy is the only thing I know dense enough to give you one. Naruto's eyes narrowed. So we're making a new sage mode. Jiraiya's expression did not shift. We're trying not to let you die while reaching for one. That ended the banter. The first lesson was sitting. Naruto hated it instantly. Jiraiya made him sit on a flat stone half submerged at the edge of the lake and told him not to move, not to gather chakra, not to experiment, not to reach for the golden current. Just sit and feel the environment without acting on it. For exactly 9 seconds, Naruto did well, then his knee bounced, then his fingers twitched, then he muttered, "This is impossible." Jiraiya, seated cross-legged on a larger stone nearby, didn't open his eyes. That was not a very impressive 9 seconds. Naruto scowled at the lake. I'm serious. It feels like I'm vibrating even when I'm not doing anything. Because you are super helpful. Most truth is. Naruto blew out a breath through his nose and tried again. Stillness. The basin was full of it in a way Konoha never had been. No foot traffic, no market noise. No layered human activity. Just water. Wind. The click of stone cooling as the sun dipped lower. Somewhere high on the ridge, a hawk called once and then did not call again. Naruto felt the lake's frequency first, not as sound, as patience. Then the mountains, then the wind. Then the place between his heartbeat and his next breath, where the golden hum usually rushed to fill the gap. Jiraiya spoke quietly. Traditional sage mode asks you to become still enough that nature energy settles into you without resistance. Naruto kept his eyes closed. Okay. What you're doing, Jiraiya continued, is the opposite. You're resisting your own motion by force. That won't work. Naruto opened one eye. How am I supposed to stop resisting it if I'm trying not to explode? Jiraiya finally opened his own eyes and met Naruto's gaze. You don't stop the motion. He said, you find the point inside it that doesn't move. Naruto stared at him. That sounds fake. Jiraiya smirked a little. And yet here we are. He stood and walked over to the lake, crouching near the surface. Look. Naruto looked. Jiraiya flicked one finger into the water. Ripples spread outward in widening circles, distorting the reflection of the mountains. Concentric motion. Constant movement. Ring after ring. Then Jiraiya pointed to the center, the exact point where his finger had touched. When everything moves outward, he said, the origin stays fixed. Naruto frowned. Jiraiya tapped Naruto lightly between the eyebrows. Your body is the storm. Fine. Then stop trying to become a wall against the storm. Become the eye. The words landed harder than Naruto expected. He looked back at the water, the origin point. Stillness not as the absence of motion, but as the center from which motion obeyed a pattern. Something in his chest answered, not understanding. Not yet, but recognition. Jiraiya saw it happen. Good, he said. Now sit there until sunset and make that make sense inside your own head. Naruto glared. That is not a teaching method. It is for you. And somehow, infuriatingly, it was. 3 days passed before Naruto managed anything resembling progress. Not dramatic progress. Not transformation. Just the first fragile moments where his mind stopped treating the golden vibration as an enemy current and started tracing its pattern instead. The hum in his body wasn't random. That truth became the foundation. It accelerated when he reacted without intention. It spiked when fear narrowed his focus too suddenly. It destabilized when he tried to impose old chakra forms on it through muscle memory. But when he let himself breathe through it, really breathe, not brace, it began to organize, less like static, more like orbit. On the 4th day, Jiraiya began the second phase. Nature energy intake. That went badly. Jiraiya had expected it to go badly. Naruto could tell because the Sannin had laid out 3 suppression seals around the lakeshore, 2 emergency antidotes, a stabilization scroll, and a wooden staff he clearly intended to hit Naruto with if things became spiritually inconvenient. "You really believe in me," Naruto said dryly. "I believe in containment." Naruto sat cross-legged on the flat stone again while Jiraiya stood a few feet away with his arms folded. "Traditional intake," Jiraiya said, "starts with opening yourself to the environment while keeping your internal chakra stable enough to integrate what comes in." Naruto nodded once. "The problem," Jiraiya went on, "is that your internal chakra is no longer the only system in play." Naruto nodded again, more slowly. "So the moment nature energy enters," Jiraiya said, "your body will try to do one of 3 things: reject it, absorb it too fast, or convert the whole process into whatever this speed-based oscillation is becoming." Naruto grimaced. "Those all sound bad. They are all bad." "Cool." Jiraiya's voice sharpened. "Naruto, listen to me carefully. The moment I say break, you break. No stubbornness, no proving a point. No 1 more second. If your control slips, I pull you out. Understood?" Naruto looked at him and saw, beneath the gruffness, something rare, actual fear, not of Naruto. For him, Naruto nodded. "Understood." Jiraiya held his gaze another second, then stepped back. "Begin," Naruto inhaled. Reached outward. He had felt nature energy before in lesser forms, enough to know it did not behave like ordinary chakra. It did not belong to him. It existed independent of human will, raw, ambient, ancient, too large to command and too honest to bargain with. Here in the basin it flowed everywhere, thick as mist beneath reality. He opened to it, it poured in, cold first, then vast, then sharp. For one impossible moment, Naruto felt the mountain inside his lungs. Water inside his blood, wind inside the spaces between thoughts. And then the golden current in his coils woke like a predator scenting movement. The reaction was instant. Nature energy did not settle into his chakra network. It was seized, accelerated, threaded through the humming gold at speeds no living body should have tolerated. Naruto gasped as every pathway in him lit up at once. Jiraiya shouted, "Slow it!" "I'm trying." The rest of the sentence broke into a hiss of pain. Gold flashed across Naruto's arms. The stone beneath him cracked in a perfect radial pattern. His heartbeat stumbled, not faster, wrong. His vision fragmented into layered frames, the lake in one speed, Jiraiya in another, droplets of mist hanging in the air like suspended glass. Too much. Way too much. His body started to phase. One leg lost cohesion and sank halfway through the stone slab. His fingers blurred. Light leaked from the lines Tsunade had painted down his arms days ago, the seal ink answering stress with a harsh blue glow. Jiraiya moved, hands snapped through signs. A suppression tag hit Naruto's chest. It burned. For a fraction of a second, the feedback worsened. Nature energy and the golden current collided harder, forced inward by the seal instead of released. Naruto screamed. The sound cracked through the basin and came back from the cliffs broken into echoes. His skin flashed transparent, not invisible, wrongly visible. Layers of muscle, bone, chakra, and gold all occupying the same moment out of sync. Jiraiya's eyes widened. That one look told Naruto how close this was. The Sannin ripped the suppression tag free and slammed his palm into Naruto's sternum instead, flooding him with stabilizing chakra. Break! Jiraiya roared. Naruto couldn't. That was the worst part. He was trying. Trying so hard his teeth hurt with it, but his body had passed the point where trying with force mattered. Nature energy was still pouring in, and the speed-based current was still accelerating it, turning every cell in him into something that felt too exact, too fast, too brittle to survive the next heartbeat. The lake around the stone began to lift in a hovering ring of trembling droplets. The air screamed. Then the world went red, not outside, inside, in the mindscape. Naruto slammed to his knees in ankle-deep water, choking on pain that hadn't decided what shape it wanted yet. The underground corridor shook. Golden lightning lashed across the bars of the seal in furious arcs. Kurama was already standing, no mockery, no delay. The 9 tails hit the bars with one massive paw and roared, "Idiot!" Naruto tried to push himself up and nearly collapsed again. "Little busy! You tried to force 2 absolutes through the same channels." "I noticed." The fox's tails thrashed once, sending waves across the dark water. His eyes were fixed not on Naruto, but on the golden light tearing over the chains. Red chakra began to seep from him, not the wild, corrosive flood of rage Naruto had known in the past. Controlled, thick, intentional. Kurama's voice dropped lower. "Listen to me." Naruto looked up and froze, because Kurama's expression had changed again, not fear this time, recognition. A memory so old it made the giant fox look, for just an instant, not ancient but young. When the sage carried power beyond chakra, Kurama said, "It felt like this." Naruto stared. The world seemed to still around the sentence. "Hagoromo," he said. Kurama bared one fang. "Do not make me repeat myself in the middle of saving you." Naruto's mind reeled anyway, the sage of 6 paths, not just chakra, something faster. Something colder and more exact. Something Kurama recognized not from hearsay or myth, but from memory. And suddenly, the golden current in Naruto's coils no longer felt like an invader. It felt like an inheritance that had gone dark for generations and was now remembering how to live. Kurama slammed another paw into the bars. "You cannot balance this by opposing it," he snarled. "The fox chakra and the speed current are different kinds of force. One burns hot and wild, one cuts cold and precise. They destroy each other if left unshaped." Naruto gritted his teeth. "Then what do I do?" Kurama's eyes narrowed. "I will lower my frequency." Naruto blinked. "You can do that!" "I am not a campfire brat. I am chakra given will." The fox's lips pulled back. "I can modulate." And before Naruto could answer, Kurama did it. Red chakra surged through the bars not violently, but in measured waves. It did not crash into Naruto's network. It spread beneath it, through it, around it, becoming a deep, steady undertone beneath the golden vibration. A harmonic bass line. Warmth under lightning, heat beneath cold precision. Naruto gasped. The pain changed. Still pain, but organized now. The tearing in his cells stopped feeling random and started locking into pattern. Nature energy no longer hit the golden current like a collision. It began to spiral around the stabilizing red chakra and settle into a layered structure. Fox, speed, nature, not competing, stacking. Kurama's voice rumbled through the chamber, "Find the center." Naruto shut his eyes. The storm in him was bigger than ever now, gold racing, red anchoring, nature energy pouring in from everywhere, and at first all he could feel was motion. Then he remembered the lake, the ripple's origin, the eye of the storm, stillness not outside the movement, but inside it. Naruto inhaled, found the point in himself that was not running, held it, and the world snapped into alignment. He came back to his body with his hand buried in the stone slab and Jiraiya gripping his shoulder hard enough to bruise. "Break, damn it!" Naruto opened his eyes. The basin went silent. Jiraiya stopped mid-motion. The hovering ring of lake water around Naruto's stone platform had frozen, not frozen into ice, but held in place as if every droplet had forgotten gravity for a single stunned second. Naruto breathed in once, slowly. His heartbeat was steady again. The pain was gone. No, not gone. incorporated. He could feel everything, the nature energy in the air, the red harmonic undertone of Kurama's chakra running stable and warm through the deepest layers of his network. And above both, interwoven without frenzy now, the golden current precise, luminous, moving so fast it felt almost serene. Jiraiya stepped back. Naruto rose to his feet. His reflection in the lake caught his attention. His eyes had changed, not toad-like. No horizontal pupils, no pigmentation around the lids. His irises had become rings of gold. Not solid gold, but concentric circles of light turning slowly around pupils gone sharp and impossibly focused, like tiny halos orbiting darkness. His hair lifted slightly from his forehead, though the air around him was still. And the lightning Naruto had expected it to arc outward. It didn't. Thin strands of gold moved around him in slow, elegant paths, orbiting his body with patient geometry, like electrons circling a nucleus too stable to fear collapse. Jiraiya whispered, "Well." Naruto looked up, and the world changed again. A bead of water fell from one hovering droplet. Naruto watched it separate, stretch, and descend in exquisite detail. He could see the surface tension break, could see the reflection of the sky sliding over its curve, could see his own golden eye caught in miniature inside it. The drop hit the stone after what felt like a very long time. Naruto inhaled sharply, not because it was beautiful, because he understood what had happened. The world had not actually slowed. His perception had accelerated. He turned his head. Jiraiya's chest rose as he breathed in. Naruto could track the motion through layers muscle, cloth, the tiny shift of travel-worn fabric at the seam of his sleeve. On the far ridge, a hawk launched itself from a branch. Naruto could count 3 distinct wing beats before the bird fully cleared the tree line. "Jiraiya," he said. The Sannin's answer came at normal speed, but Naruto heard each syllable as if it had room around it. "Tell me you're still you." Naruto almost laughed from sheer relief. "I'm still me." Jiraiya studied him for 3 long seconds, then let out a breath that carried about 6 different kinds of worry with it. "Good." Naruto looked at his own hands, closed them, opened them, nothing destabilized, nothing shattered. The golden rings in his eyes reflected off the dark water. "What is this?" Jiraiya's expression turned thoughtful and careful all at once. "A sage mode, I think, but not one that should exist." Naruto felt the nature energy breathing with him, felt Kurama's stabilizing current underneath, felt the speed-based power no longer raging loose but orbiting according to a structure he could touch. The phrase came to him naturally. "Speed Force Sage Mode," he said. Jiraiya pinched the bridge of his nose. "You are still naming things too early." Naruto grinned. That was enough proof of selfhood for both of them. Mastery did not arrive with the awakening. That would have been too easy, and Naruto's life did not permit easy things on principle. What arrived first was access, then training, days stretched into a brutal, focused rhythm in the hidden basin, morning, nature energy intake and stabilization. Midday, motion drills while maintaining the internal still point. Afternoon, combat application. Evening, recovery, notes, arguments, and Jiraiya pretending not to be impressed whenever Naruto did something that bent the laws of shinobi combat hard enough to make history nervous. The first new ability Naruto consciously learned inside Speed Force Sage Mode was perception control. At first, the accelerated awareness nearly made him nauseous. Everything contained too much information. The movement of leaves, the swirl of insects over the lake, the tiny fracture lines in stone, the minute delay between intention and action in Jiraiya's feints, it all came at him in layered, precise frames. Then Jiraiya made him spar. That solved the problem quickly. "Stop staring at the world like it's art," Jiraiya barked on day 3 of post-awakening combat practice. "Use it!" Naruto ducked a kick, pivoted, and saw the next elbow before the shoulder fully committed. He moved, not much, just enough. The elbow cut through empty air. Jiraiya's eyes widened for half a second. Naruto saw that too. A kunai flicked toward him from Jiraiya's left hand. Naruto watched the blade rotate, watched the glint of sunlight crawl down its edge, reached out and plucked it from the air. Jiraiya landed, sandals scraping stone, and a slow grin spread beneath the older man's face paint. "There," he said. "That!" Naruto rolled the kunai across his knuckles. "That what?" "That's the point where thinking and seeing are happening fast enough that your body no longer wastes motion guessing." Naruto looked at the weapon in his hand. It hadn't felt like speed, it had felt like certainty. Nanosecond perception, he realized later, was the best name for it. Not because he was literally counting time in units that small, but because perception itself had become granular. He could observe the space between moments now. The tiny seams where most people's awareness skipped, a raindrop splitting against stone, a kunai beginning its rotation. A lie arriving in someone's face before their mouth shaped it. That last one Jiraiya told him not to get smug about. Naruto got smug anyway. The second breakthrough came by accident, which made it feel more traditional. Jiraiya had ordered him to practice movement bursts while staying inside the Sage Mode state without tipping into unstable acceleration. In simpler terms, move fast, stay calm, don't disintegrate. Naruto did his best. His best carved lines through the lakeshore, shattered 3 decoy markers, and nearly clipped Jiraiya once hard enough that the Sannin started swearing about inheritance and paperwork in the same breath. On the 5th attempt, Naruto launched forward, braked hard, pivoted, and found 3 versions of himself still moving after him. He stumbled to a stop and whipped around. 3 Narutos stood 10 feet behind him, not shadow clones. No puff of smoke, no hand sign, no chakra division. They were made of condensed residual speed energy and held shape for exactly 2 shocked heartbeats before one darted sideways on its own and punched through a target post. Another spun into a low kick that severed a training dummy at the knee, and the third simply unraveled into crackling gold particles. Naruto stared. Jiraiya stared. The remaining 2 clones turned toward Naruto at the same time with identical expressions of offended confusion, as if he should explain what they were. Then they dissolved. The clearing filled with fading sparks. Naruto's grin arrived slow and wild. Jiraiya groaned. "Absolutely not." Naruto pointed at the place the copies had stood. "Did you see that?" "I saw 3 additional versions of my problem. They were solid, they were brief, they hit stuff." Jiraiya rubbed both hands down his face. "Of course they did." Naruto laughed out loud for the first time in days. Speed clones, not shadow clones born of divided chakra, but afterimages crystallized into temporary substance by movement and residual force. Less stable, maybe, shorter-lived, but stronger than ordinary feints, and carrying the full molecular vibration potential of his body. That last part made Jiraiya ban their use in the basin until Naruto learned better control. Naruto used them anyway in smaller tests, because rules were suggestions life occasionally made to him out of optimism. He learned quickly. A speed clone could not last long. The world seemed to reject them if he wasn't continuously feeding motion into their structure. But for a brief window, they were devastating solid, reactive, and unpredictable because they inherited momentum rather than separate thought. By the end of the 2nd week, Naruto could generate 1 on command. By the end of the 3rd, 2. He wanted 3 again. Jiraiya told him to earn it without detonating the mountain. That same night, sitting by the lake with a bowl of rough camp stew cooling in his hands, Naruto dropped into the mindscape on purpose. Kurama was waiting, not at the back this time. Closer to the bars, red eyes half-lidded, tails curled around his massive body like dark fire. Naruto sat in the water across from him. For a while they said nothing. The golden lightning on the chains was calmer now. Not gone, integrated. Red chakra ran beneath it in thicker bands, stabilizing, anchoring. The sight no longer made Naruto feel like something alien had invaded his seal. It looked disturbingly like architecture. Finally, Naruto spoke. "You knew about Hagoromo." Kurama's ear twitched. "I knew traces." "That's not the same as a guess." "No, Naruto looked at the chains. So why not tell me sooner? Kurama's gaze sharpened. Because you would have heard the sage carried this and immediately decided that meant you could survive whatever it did to you. Naruto opened his mouth, then closed it. Because that was exactly what he would have done. Kurama huffed once, which on him sounded like a distant avalanche being mildly unimpressed. Hagoromo was not merely powerful because of chakra quantity. There were moments, rare moments, when his presence moved with a kind of inevitability even I could not fully read. Faster than foresight, cleaner than instinct, as if the world had already agreed where he would be before he arrived. Naruto listened without interrupting. I did not understand it then, Kurama said. Chakra was still new. Humans had barely begun to make systems out of what they'd been given. I only knew that it was not the same as the energies they all named, shaped, and inherited. His eyes narrowed slightly. When this awakened in you, I remembered. Naruto stared at the giant fox. You were scared. Kurama's lip curled. Do not become sentimental. You were. The fox's tails shifted once. Then, with visible irritation, he said, Yes. Naruto blinked. Kurama almost never gave him simple honesty without claws hidden behind it. Not because I thought you weak, the fox said before Naruto could misread the answer. Because I remembered what it felt like when power greater than ordinary form tried to pass through mortal structures. Naruto looked down at the black water around his knees. I almost died. Yes. The bluntness hit harder because Kurama didn't dramatize it. Naruto exhaled slowly. But you didn't, Kurama went on, because you listened in time. Naruto laughed quietly. You saying I listen now? I am saying, Kurama rumbled, that for one entire moment you stopped charging at the problem like a rabid boar and actually found the center. That was, in fox language, almost certainly praise. Naruto smiled a little despite himself, then he looked up. You anchored me. Kurama's gaze drifted to the chains. I stabilized the harmonic bass line. Do not make it sound tender. Naruto's smile widened. Kurama showed a fang. Keep grinning and I will destabilize it. That made Naruto laugh outright. And the strange, fragile thing between them, part partnership, part debt, part battle, one trust settled one layer deeper. Warmth over lightning. Kurama had not used those words in the mindscape, but Naruto understood them now all the same. This power might be cold, precise, directional, but it would not take his humanity unless he surrendered it, and he had too many people to protect to become something empty. By the fourth week, the basin began to feel too small, not physically, practically. Naruto could maintain Speed Force Sage mode for longer periods now without pain. He could move across the lake's surface and back without breaking his center. He could phase through stone, mismatch frequency on contact, and generate short-lived speed clones under combat stress. What he had not tested yet was whether the mode held in real chaos. Jiraiya knew it. Naruto knew it. The mountain probably knew it. That morning the sky had turned dark with fast-moving cloud bands, wind cutting sharp off the ridges. Good training weather, according to Jiraiya. Suspiciously dramatic, according to Naruto. The Sannin stood on the far shore, cloaks snapping in the wind. One last run, he called. Naruto, standing ankle-deep in the lake with gold rings turning in his eyes, rolled his shoulders. You say that every day. And one day it'll be true. Very inspiring. Jiraiya cupped his hands around his mouth. Try not to invent a new disaster before lunch. Naruto grinned and sank into stance. Nature energy flowed in. Kurama's red undertones stabilized. Gold began to orbit. The world opened. He moved across the water up the cliff face, off the stone ledge in a blurring arc that split the rain just beginning to fall. At the apex, Naruto formed a speed clone to the left, then another below, using their residual trajectories to redirect his own descent. He passed through a jutting rock outcrop without touching it, re-solidified mid-spin, and drove a vibration strike into a suspended practice boulder. The boulder shattered internally and dropped in neat halves into the lake. Naruto landed in a crouch. Rain hung around him in glittering slow-motion beads. He could see every drop, every ripple, every line of motion. He straightened. And that was when he felt it, not from the basin, far away. A pull, a disruption racing across distance so fast it barely qualified as sensation before it became certainty. Naruto's head snapped toward the southeast, toward Konoha. Jiraiya was moving before Naruto spoke. "What?" Naruto didn't answer immediately. He didn't have words yet. Only the hard, cold conviction that something had touched the edge of his perception, moving at a speed no ordinary shinobi should have possessed. Then the second pulse hit sharper, closer, and wrong, not golden like his, not warm like Kurama, fast but corrupted. Jagged, hungry. Like motion stripped of purpose and fed only on its own acceleration. Naruto's expression changed. Jiraiya saw it and went still. "Tell me." Naruto's voice came low and absolute. "Someone's moving almost as fast as I am." The basin seemed to tighten around the sentence. Jiraiya's face hardened. "Enemy?" Naruto extended his senses instinctively. Not outward through ordinary chakra perception, but through the structured field of Speed Force Sage Mode. Across the rain. Across stone. Across distance. For one terrifying instant he saw flashes, a black shape, ground scorching after the fact. Roof tiles lifting in delayed shockwaves, golden red streaks not his gold, not quite lightning, not quite chakra cutting across Konoha's skyline. Naruto's stomach dropped. "Konoha?" The word was barely sound. Then he vanished. Jiraiya cursed and launched after him, but Naruto was already gone from the lakeshore. A line of gold ripping across the mountain path, faster than thunder. Konoha had never looked like this. Naruto hit the outer ridge above the village and stopped so abruptly the stone under his sandals cracked in a clean crescent. Below him, chaos had already begun, not full destruction. Not invasion army scale. Worse, in some ways, surgical damage appearing in disconnected lines. As if violence itself were moving too quickly to be seen as a continuous event. A watchtower on the western wall split down the middle half a second after Naruto arrived, then collapsed inward. 3 rooftops in the market district bore blackened streaks that hadn't been there a moment earlier. Shinobi on the streets were looking in the wrong directions because the aftermath reached them before the cause. Then Naruto saw the streak, black, not a person at first. A line of speed crossing 2 rooftops and the gap between them in less than a heartbeat, but Naruto, in his mode, could see the moments between, a figure cloaked in dark cloth that clung close enough not to slow them. Hair whipped back by velocity. Arms lean, movements precise. Their path bent not like a body sprinting, but like a force selecting vectors. The figure crossed the Hokage monument face in a single long blur and stopped atop the fourth's head. Naruto felt the wrongness of the chakra, or whatever it was, spill across the village, fast, corrupted, almost his. The figure lifted their head. Even at this distance, Naruto couldn't make out the face clearly, but he knew one thing instantly. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a shinobi who'd stumbled into power and lost control. Whoever stood there understood speed well enough to weaponize fear with it. Jiraiya landed beside Naruto a split second later, breathing hard but steady. He followed Naruto's gaze and his expression went grim. "Well," the Sannin said. "That's new." Below them, alarms began to ring, too slow. Naruto's golden eyes narrowed. The black-cloaked figure looked up, straight at him. Across the entire village, and smiled. Then they moved. Naruto did too. The mountain edge exploded beneath his feet as a line of gold tore downward to intercept a line of black. Konoha, for one terrible suspended instant, held its breath between 2 storms. And the first true test of Naruto's new power had finally arrived. Chapter 4. Impact Lethal Kinetic Combat Integration. The first collision never happened. That was how everyone in Konoha would describe it later. Not because nothing struck. Not because nothing broke. But because by the time ordinary eyes registered that 2 figures had moved, the impact had already passed into aftermath. Roof tiles were lifting into the air. Glass was still trembling in window frames. A water tank 3 streets over split down the center with a clean, delayed crack. A strip of banner cloth hanging from a market arch ignited at one edge from friction, and then went out just as suddenly, as if even the fire hadn't had time to understand why it was there. To Naruto, in Speed Force Sage mode, the collision happened in exquisite detail. He launched from the ridge in a line of gold. The black-cloaked figure came off the fourth Hokage stone head in a line of darkness edged with distorted red static. The space between them stretched, not physically, perceptually. Naruto could see each phase of his own descent, the angle of his shoulders, the tension in his legs, the precise moment his right hand opened in preparation to either phase through or strike depending on what the enemy did first. He could see the other figure calculating too, weight shifting microscopically, body angled not for a simple tackle but for a vector change after first contact. They weren't charging blindly. They were thinking at speed. That more than anything made Naruto's stomach tighten. This wasn't just someone fast. This was someone who had learned to live inside it. They met above the avenue between the administration building and a row of civilian residences. Naruto reached to intercept. The figure twisted. Their forearms crossed for less than a heartbeat. Naruto expected pressure, expected resistance. Instead, the contact felt like touching a current running the wrong direction through the same wire. Cold shot up his arm, not freezing cold, draining cold, like his momentum had met something that didn't merely oppose motion but wanted to take it apart. Both of them recoiled in different arcs, rebounding off the exchange fast enough that the shockwave hit the street below before either body touched down. Stone cracked outward. Civilians screamed somewhere behind shuttered windows. Naruto landed in a crouch on the edge of a tiled roof, one hand down, gold lightning orbiting in deliberate rings around him. The black-cloaked figure landed opposite him on a water tower railing, balanced as lightly as if gravity were a suggestion rather than law. For half a second they simply looked at each other. Now Naruto could see him properly, young but not Naruto's age exactly, maybe a few years older, lean face, sharp cheekbones, long, dark red hair tied loosely back with strands whipping free around a forehead marked by old sealing scars that ran down toward one temple like something had once tried to brand power directly into his skin. His cloak hung open enough to reveal armor remnants beneath light, travel-worn, patched without care. His eyes were the worst part. They glowed, not golden rings like Naruto's Sage mode. A deep, unstable red threaded with black, as if movement itself had started rotting from the inside. The stranger's mouth curved first. "There you are," he said. His voice reached Naruto in stretched clarity. Calm, almost pleased, Naruto rose slowly. "Who are you?" The man spread one hand as if presenting himself to a stage. "Raiden." The name meant nothing immediately. But the chakra, or whatever this speed-tainted force, was felt wrong in a way Naruto already understood instinctively. Like his own power had been mirrored through hunger and sharpened into a weapon meant to consume its own source. Below and behind Naruto, shinobi were mobilizing. Anbu signals. Rooftop movement, perimeter redirection. Tsunade would already be moving, Kakashi too, but they were far outside the rhythm of this fight. Raiden tilted his head. I wondered what the awakened one would look like. Naruto's jaw tightened. "You attacked my village to introduce yourself?" Raiden's smile widened by a fraction. "No, I attacked your village to make sure you came quickly." Then he vanished. Naruto moved on instinct, not a way through. Raiden reappeared at Naruto's left flank with a hand aimed not as a punch, but as a hook toward Naruto's ribcage, fingers curved like claws meant to catch and pull. Naruto phased just as the hand passed through the space his body had occupied a fraction of a second earlier. The feeling was horrifying. Even intangible, Naruto felt the drag of it, the black-red current in Raiden's hand trying to grip the pattern of his motion itself. Trying to steal acceleration mid-transition. Naruto re-solidified behind him and drove a vibration strike toward the base of Raiden's spine. Raiden twisted before contact fully landed. Naruto's fist brushed the cloak. The fabric didn't tear. The internal weave unraveled all at once, entire sections of the garment collapsing into ash-fine threads that scattered down the roofline in a black-red shimmer. Raiden's expression sharpened. "Oh," he said softly. "You've learned resonance." Then he was moving again. The rooftop disappeared under them. To everyone below, it looked like flashes gold and black streaking between rooftops with delayed eruptions of damage marking the paths. To Naruto, the fight had structure. Raiden preferred vectors that crossed through crowded or strategically awkward spaces. Not because he was clumsy, because he wanted Naruto constrained. Every time Naruto committed to a direct intercept, Raiden clipped a chimney, tore through a banner line, or redirected across a civilian block in ways that forced Naruto to choose between the perfect line and the safe line. Naruto noticed fast and got angry faster. "You're using them?" Naruto snapped as they crossed above the market district in mirrored arcs. Raiden laughed. "I'm using you?" He cut sharply downward. Naruto saw the path. Straight toward a section of street where two Chunin were ushering civilians into a shelter corridor. Naruto surged ahead, gold spiraling tighter around him, and reached the intercept point first. Raiden hit him high, no strike, no fist, just palm to sternum. The instant the contact landed, Naruto felt it. Negative speed. That was the only way his mind knew how to define it. His own power accelerated, organized, carried motion into finer, sharper, more precise states. Raiden's version did something uglier. It reached into movement and pulled, drained, stripped kinetic structure from whatever it touched, not stopping it cleanly but stealing the energy out of the system like it was siphoning heat from a flame while leaving the smoke. Naruto's breath punched out. For a terrifying fraction of a second, the orbiting gold around him faltered. Raiden's eyes brightened. "Yes," he murmured, "there it is." Naruto's hand shot up and caught Raiden's wrist. Instead of pulling away, Raiden leaned in, grin widening, and Naruto saw the instability in the older man's face, too much sharpness in the cheekbones. Too little softness anywhere, like living inside corrupted speed had sanded away every patient human edge he'd once possessed. "Do you feel that?" Raiden said. "The difference between inheritance and hunger." Naruto answered by slamming his forehead into Raiden's nose. The impact cracked cartilage. Raiden recoiled. Naruto drove a high-frequency thread-wrapped punch into his gut. This time the strike landed fully. Raiden's body folded around it, not from surface force, but from the internal resonance punching through muscle and into the structural rhythm beneath. He flew backward through the side of an unoccupied storage building and out the far wall in a burst of timber and dust. Naruto did not wait to see if he stayed down. He blurred forward after him. They crashed through the warehouse district and out into an open industrial yard lined with supply crates, training stone and half-finished masonry shipments. Better, fewer civilians, wider lines of sight. Naruto could feel the battle space open like a hand unclenching. Raiden stood in the center of the yard, already recovering, blood at one nostril, one hand pressed to his abdomen. He looked delighted. "There you are," he said again, but this time it sounded like satisfaction instead of greeting. "I was afraid the village had made you soft." Naruto landed on a high stone block at the edge of the yard, breathing measured and controlled. "You came here because you wanted to test me." Raiden wiped blood from his lip with the back of one hand and glanced at it almost idly. "I came because I needed to know whether the blood had awakened true or diluted." Naruto frowned. "Blood?" Raiden laughed once. "So no one told you?" "Of course they didn't." Golden light tightened around Naruto's arms. "Tell me now." Raiden's gaze sharpened. "Use Uzumaki." The word dropped like iron. Naruto said nothing. Raiden spread his arms slightly, cloak fragments fluttering from the surviving shoulder seams. The line that was supposed to hold vitality, endurance, impossible chakra density, sealing talent. All true, all incomplete. We were built to carry more than chakra. That was always the point. Naruto's mind flashed back to Jiraiya, the scroll case, the phrase Sokuryoku no Kai. Raiden saw recognition hit. "There," he said. "Someone found the old scraps." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "You're Uzumaki." Raiden's smile went thin. "I'm what's left of one." The answer held enough bitterness to darken the air around it. Then Raiden flexed one hand and black-red distortions coiled over his fingers. "You awakened naturally," he said. "Lucky, stable, clean." His expression hardened. "I did not have that luxury." Naruto remembered the sealing scars on his head, the way the corrupted speed energy didn't flow around him so much as bite through him. "You forced it," Naruto said. Raiden's grin returned, sharp as broken glass. "I opened the door my blood should have opened on its own." "How?" Raiden's eyes burned brighter. "With a ritual every coward called forbidden because they were too frightened to touch what our line was made for." Naruto felt the answer before it came: blood ritual, seal carving, acceleration without harmony, not awakening. Ripping power into place and surviving by refusing to die before it set. That explained the wrongness. The constant hunger in Raiden's movement, the way his force drained instead of aligned. "You broke it," Naruto said. Raiden's expression went flat. "No," he said. "I survived what it costs." Then he moved. The industrial yard erupted, crates split apart in delayed slashes as Raiden crossed through them. Naruto met him in the center and the world became lines. Strike, phase, turn, counter, burst, vanish, reappear. To anyone watching, impossible. To Naruto, brutally legible. Raiden attacked like a man who had long ago stopped distinguishing between movement and violence. Every trajectory carried secondary damage built into it. He'd rip along the edge of a crate stack, so the collapse forced Naruto to divert. He'd dip low, drain kinetic force from a falling beam so it hung just long enough to become a blind spot, then reaccelerate off its surface from a direction that made no sense until Naruto saw the theft and release pattern underlying it. Naruto adapted. His vibration strike became less a finishing blow and more a combat language. Short pulses through glancing contact. Chakra thread wrapped knuckles brushing armor seams, support beams, thrown weapons, even the air around Raiden's close-quarters guard to destabilize the space he relied on. Naruto phased through direct drains whenever he could, but each pass near Raiden's negative field came with that awful sense of something trying to take his motion apart molecule by molecule. Twice, Raiden nearly caught him. The first time, Naruto avoided a drain hand to the throat by less than an inch and saw black-red distortions shear the air where his neck had been. The second time, Raiden seized a speed clone instead of Naruto. The result shocked them both. Naruto's clone had been mid-lunge, solid enough to strike. Raiden caught it by the face and pulled. Instead of dissolving immediately, the clone convulsed as its speed-formed structure was drained from the inside. Gold peeled off it in ribbons. The clone's expression twisted with Naruto's own startled anger before it collapsed into black-edged sparks. Raiden inhaled through his teeth. For a fraction of a second, his own red-black aura brightened. Naruto understood instantly. He can feed on it. Raiden's grin answered for him. "Now you're learning." Naruto's gold rings narrowed. That changed everything. He could not flood the field with speed clones carelessly now. Not against someone who could steal their motion and add it to his own corrupted reserves. Every move had to count. Every burst had to justify its cost. The ground between them was already scarred with blackened lines and smooth circular absences where resonance or drain had erased structural integrity instead of smashing it. The air smelled of heated stone, ozone, and the metallic scent of freshly fractured matter. Then a new presence hit the yard. Several presences. Tsunade arrived first, landing atop a broken supply frame at the southern edge with enough force to split the support beam. Kakashi appeared one heartbeat later on a rooftop remnant to the west, sharing an exposed and already tracking uselessly between afterimages. Two Anbu squads ringed the perimeter at safer distance, not engaging because there was no honest way to do so without becoming collateral. Above, another presence thundered in heavy, violent, familiar. The fourth Raikage. Came in like a bolt of living blue lightning, landing on a warehouse shell overlooking the yard. Darui and C behind him. They must have been in or near Fire Country for summit coordination or some diplomatic rotation. Naruto didn't have time to care why. What mattered was the expression on A's face. The fastest conventional shinobi alive had arrived and could not read the battle. Raiden laughed when he saw him. How appropriate. A's chakra flared. "Naruto, fall back!" Naruto barked out a humorless laugh without taking his eyes off Raiden. "Would love to. Busy." Raiden turned just enough to be insulting. "So this is the famous Raikage." Blue lightning snapped harder around A's shoulders. "You're fast. That does not make you untouchable." Raiden's red-black aura coiled tighter. "No, it makes me relevant." Then both he and Naruto moved again, and the cage saw exactly how irrelevant conventional reaction time could feel. Later Tsunade would remember only pieces. A gold streak striking a black-red, one above ground level, and the crack appearing in a stone block before the sound arrived. Kakashi would remember the Sharingan catching fragments enough to know where they had been a heartbeat ago, never enough to know where they would be next. Would remember the first time in years that speed, as a concept, had stopped being something he measured himself against and become something alien unfolding beyond his frame of mastery. The fight tore through the yard and up into the open quarry beyond it, where half-cut stone columns rose in rows like unfinished monuments. Better still, wider space, less collateral. Naruto felt Raiden steering them there and understood the reason a second too late. The quarry was a killing field for high-output techniques. Raiden wanted room, fine. Naruto could use room too. They skidded to opposite ends of the carved basin, dozens of meters apart, stone dust hanging between them in suspended slowness through Naruto's accelerated perception. Raiden straightened. His breathing had deepened slightly. Blood marked one corner of his mouth. One arm hung a little stiff after Naruto's last resonance hit, but his eyes were bright with a zeal that bordered on religious. "This is the part," Raiden said, voice carrying strangely clear across distance, "where you stop trying to fight like a leaf shinobi and show me what awakened blood actually does." Naruto's answer came from a place deeper than anger. "You attacked my home." Raiden spread his hands. "And you still haven't decided whether to kill me." That struck harder than Naruto expected because it was true, not the indecision. The awareness of it. He had landed blows that could have ended ordinary opponents. He had chosen not to push them all the way through. Chosen not to let the vibration strike turn from disabling resonance into disintegration. Somewhere under the velocity, under the pressure, under the necessity of stopping this man, Naruto had still drawn a line. Raiden saw it and despised it. "Speed without commitment," he said, almost pitying. "You really did grow up loved." The insult barely registered. Naruto's focus had shifted because he could feel the wind here, the shape of the quarry, the exact geometry of the stone faces. The way Raiden's corrupted force moved not just fast, but hungry, creating tiny zones of kinetic absence around him that distorted dust trajectories and dragged at loose debris. A technique started forming in Naruto's mind. Raisen Shuriken, not the old way, not even close. The wind-nature base of it was still relevant. The principle of countless microscopic blades, the external throw, the detonation radius, but through this new power, spin was no longer enough vibration, frequency. Kinetic force broken down into streams fine enough to separate structure at the smallest meaningful level. Naruto extended one hand, gold gathered. Raiden's smile faded. Even from across the quarry, he could feel it. The air above Naruto's, palm warped as a sphere of condensed chakra formed not blue, not even primarily wind visible, but brilliant gold laced with razor-thin filaments of white-hot motion. It spun at first like a Rasengan, then changed, flattening, unfolding into a shuriken shape held together not by ordinary rotation, but by vibrating layers so precise the surrounding air fell silent. That was what made everyone on the perimeter go still. No howl, no roar, no visible violence. Just absence, as if the technique had already moved beyond sound. Kakashi's voice, low and disbelieving. "Naruto!" Tsunede's stomach dropped. Jiraiya, arriving at the quarry rim a heartbeat too late to intervene, felt old terror rise like ice water down his spine. Raiden's expression transformed. Not fear, ecstasy? Yes, he whispered. There you are! Naruto looked at the technique in his hand and understood with awful clarity what it could do. This was not an explosive finisher. This was erasure through precision. A thrown field of molecularly vibrating kinetic streams capable of slipping between bonds rather than bludgeoning through them. One direct hit would not tear Raiden apart in a dramatic blast. It would unmake the structure in a radius around contact, so cleanly that the world might forget to scream. Naruto's jaw set. He threw. The supersonic Rasen Shuriken crossed the quarry without sound. Only the aftermath marked its path, a corridor of hanging dust sliced into smooth-edged absence. Tiny stones along the ground flicking upward and vanishing into micron-fine particulate before even landing again. Raiden moved. He was fast, terrifyingly fast. For 3 consecutive frames of Naruto's perception, he almost dodged it. Then the edge of the technique clipped his left side. What happened next seared itself into every witness. The quarry did not explode. A perfect radius 20 meters wide ceased to be structurally intact. Stone did not blast outward. It lost cohesion and folded into a silent bowl of absence, edges sheared so smooth they looked polished. The center dropped away as if reality there had forgotten how to remain rock. No crater blast, no rolling fire. Just a sphere cut hollow where matter had been taken apart faster than force could propagate dramatically. Silence held for 1 impossible second. Then displaced air rushed inward with a deep, delayed thunder. Naruto was already moving, because he had seen Raiden survive it. Barely. The left half of the man's cloak was gone. Armor beneath it had unraveled. Skin across his flank was torn not by impact, but by partial molecular destabilization, bloody, raw, and frighteningly close to catastrophic. But he had twisted just enough, redirected just enough, stolen just enough of the technique's kinetic edge with his corrupted force to avoid total annihilation. And now he was furious. No delight. No taunting. No zeal, just rage. He hit Naruto like a collapsing star. The drain hand caught Naruto's forearm, and this time Naruto felt the true depth of negative speed. It didn't merely steal motion, it tried to hollow out the future momentum of the system it touched, making the body forget how to continue moving coherently. Gold around Naruto's arm dimmed. Raiden drove him through a standing quarry pillar. Stone erupted around them. "You would erase me," Raiden hissed, face inches from Naruto's, blood and fury bright on his mouth. Naruto slammed his head back against the pillar remnant, using the rebound to wrench one shoulder free. "You attacked my village," Naruto snarled back. Raiden's hand tightened. "And you still aim to maim, not kill?" The accusation sounded almost disgusted. Naruto saw it then. Raiden genuinely believed restraint was weakness. That greater power imposed a moral obligation not toward care, but toward decisive destruction. Use the full line. Finish the target. Hesitation meant inferiority. Naruto hated him for making that logic feel so clean. Raiden drew his other hand back, negative speed coiling over the fingers in black-red fractures. A strike to the chest. Centerline. He was aiming for Naruto's core network, either to rip the speed current out entirely or leave the body too destabilized to hold it. Naruto phased, not backward. Forward. Raiden's killing strike passed through Naruto's chest as Naruto slipped intangible by a hair's breadth, and in the same moment Naruto drove both hands into Raiden's torso. One to the shoulder, one to the abdomen. He didn't mismatch violently, he tuned. For the first time in the fight, Naruto stopped trying to break the man's body and reached for the corruption underneath it. He felt Raiden's internal rhythm instantly and recoiled at the damage. The speed force in him was not integrated. It had been forced through his chakra coils like molten metal through brittle glass. Seals had carved channels where none should exist. Negative speed pooled in scar tissue and coiled around torn pathways that should never have healed but had through sheer monstrous endurance. Raiden was not wielding a power cleanly. He was surviving an ongoing wound and calling it ascension. Naruto's gold rings sharpened, Raiden's eyes widened. He realized too late what Naruto was doing. No, Naruto pulsed the resonance inward, not to disintegrate, to shatter the corrupted frequency at its anchors. The effect was immediate. Black-red distortions convulsed under Raiden's skin. The sealing scars across his temple and down his side flared violently. Negative speed lashed outward in wild arcs, tearing grooves in the nearby quarry wall. Raiden screamed, not from pain alone, from loss. Naruto held the pattern for one more fraction of a second, just long enough to break the corruption's structural lock on the chakra coils without collapsing the coils themselves. Then he released. Raiden flew backward, hit the quarry floor, bounced once, and rolled to a stop in a cloud of dust and loose stone. Silence. Actual silence this time, except for the distant rush of displaced air settling back into the carved basin. Naruto landed hard on one knee, one hand braced to the ground, breathing like each lungful had to be argued into existence. The gold around him flickered but held. Kurama's warm undertones stayed steady. Sage mode still active barely, across from him, Raiden tried to rise. His hand twitched. His body did not answer. The black-red aura that had coiled around him all fight was gone. Not entirely annihilated, Naruto could still feel poisonous remnants of it in the wreck of the man system, but broken as an active engine. The corrupted frequency had lost its anchors. Raiden looked at his own hands in disbelief, then up at Naruto. There was hatred there, but beneath it, for the first time, there was also fear. "You," he rasped. "You could have—" "Yeah," Naruto said, still breathing hard. "I could have—" The rest of the sentence stayed between them. "I could have erased you. I could have chosen the easy line. I could have answered destruction with a cleaner destruction and called it necessary." Naruto rose slowly to his feet. Around the quarry rim, the others finally moved. Tsunade first, dropping to Raiden's side with Shizune right behind her. Chakra already in her hands and anger burning so hot on her face it looked like she might heal the man only to punch him back unconscious. Kakashi landed near Naruto but kept a careful distance, one eye tracking Naruto's condition before his voice ever emerged. "You still with us?" Naruto let out one dry laugh. "Mostly." Landed on the rim opposite, blue lightning fading in restless snaps across his shoulders. He stared at the silent bowl the supersonic Rasen Shuriken had cut into the quarry and then at Naruto. And for the first time since Naruto had known of him, the rakeage looked not merely competitive or assessing. He looked unsettled. Because speed in the shinobi world had always still belonged to the world's rules. This did not. Jiraiya dropped down last, cloak torn from his own rush back from the mountains, and took one long look at Naruto before speaking. "You disobeyed several future instructions I intend to invent retroactively." Naruto grinned weakly. "Good, means I'm fine." Jiraiya's answering relief was hidden under a scowl too practiced to fool anyone. Tsunade, meanwhile, had one hand pressed to Raiden's chest and the other over the ruined coil structures Naruto had resonated through. Her eyes narrowed sharply. "You didn't destroy him," she said without looking up. Naruto shook his head. "I broke the corrupted part loose from the anchors. I think—" "You think I was busy." Tsunade gave him a flat look over one shoulder that promised future violence. Then her gaze shifted back to Raiden, clinical intensity replacing fury. "No," she said slowly. "You're right." Shizune looked stunned. "He targeted the coil corruption directly, not cleanly." Tsunade said, "But precisely enough." A silence followed that assessment too, because everyone there understood what it meant. Naruto had just demonstrated not only destructive force on a scale that made cage-level combat look clumsy, but the ability to choose how much destruction to permit while moving inside that scale. That was the more frightening power. Raiden laughed weakly from the ground. It was a broken sound now. "You don't understand," he whispered, eyes fixed on the sky. Breaking me changes nothing. Jiraiya crouched beside him. Then explain. Raiden's smile barely moved. In my belongings, he said, voice rough with blood and exhaustion, there's a scroll. Kakashi was already moving, searching the remains of the shattered cloak and gear scattered across the quarry floor. He found the scroll case half buried under broken stone. Minutes later, dark lacquer, old Uzumaki seals, edges marked by foreign symbols overlaid later in harsher ink. He brought it to Jiraiya. The old Sannin broke the outer seal carefully, unrolled it, and for once in his life truly had no immediate sarcastic response. Naruto, still catching his breath, stepped closer. The document wasn't a simple map, it was worse. A set of dimensional coordinates plotted through sealed geometry Naruto had never seen, but somehow, in the altered state of his perception, could tell did not reference locations in the elemental nations as ordinary space. Points beyond standard geography. Intersections of energy and direction that implied not land routes, but cracks, bridges, fractures between planes or adjacent states of reality. Jiraiya's face hardened. Along one margin were notes: short, brutal, functional, 3 remaining dormant bloodlines, convergence risk increasing. Primary fracture unstable, negative extraction insufficient, need fully awakened stabilizer or total rupture. Naruto read the final line twice, then looked at Raiden. You weren't just here to test me. Raiden's eyes, half-lidded but awake, met his. No, he said. I was here because if you were weak, this world was already dead. The quarry wind moved through the silence. Kakashi took the scroll from Jiraiya and scanned it quickly, sharing and narrowing. Tsunade stood, blood on her hands from stabilizing wounds she'd had every reason to let hurt longer. Start talking clearly. Raiden's laugh turned into a cough. The speed force in this world, he said slowly, is not meant to be drawn from one point by too many living conduits. The old texts called it a stream, a road, a divine current, different names, same truth. He swallowed, pain carving each word thinner. Every forced awakening, every dormant bloodline stirring, every ritual, every theft, all of it pulls strain toward the same place, a fracture. Naruto's gaze went back to the coordinate matrix. Where? Raiden's expression twisted. Not where, between. That answer chilled the air more effectively than any wind. Jiraiya rolled the scroll tighter in one hand. How long? Raiden gave a humorless smile. If it follows the rate I feared. His eyes closed for a second, then reopened on Naruto. Not long enough for you to keep learning at your own pace. Naruto stood very still. The fight was over. The chapter had given him everything it promised. The first true showcase of what lethal kinetic combat looked like when integrated with his new power. The terror of supersonic Rasen Shuriken. The reveal of corrupted negative speed. The proof that the cage themselves could not simply solve this by arriving louder. But what landed hardest in the settling dust of the quarry was something quieter. Power had not solved the problem. Choice had. Every instant of that fight had demanded one: where to intercept, what to protect, how much force to allow, whether speed existed to dominate or to reach someone before it was too late. Raiden had become a warning made flesh. Speed without purpose, speed without patience, speed without anything human left in the center. Naruto looked at the hollow bowl the Rasen Shuriken had cut into the quarry wall and thought about how easy it would have been, how terrifyingly easy to answer Raiden's logic in his own language. Erase the enemy, call it mercy, move on. Instead, he had done the harder thing. He had entered the wound without becoming one, and standing there, exhausted, shaking, village dust still settling across his shoulders, Naruto understood something that would matter even more than the technique he had just created. This power was moral, not metaphorically. Practically. The faster he became, the more deliberate he would have to be. Because at these speeds, mistakes were no longer small enough to survive. And if he ever lost the reason he was running toward something, toward people, toward protection, toward home, then all that would remain was velocity wearing his face. Above them, the clouds shifted. A narrow blade of sunlight cut across the quarry and struck the sealed coordinates on the scroll in Kakashi's hand. 3 dormant bloodlines, a fracture between worlds, a clock already running. Naruto lifted his eyes. The next fight was not waiting to be found, it was coming. And somewhere beyond the map's impossible geometry, reality itself had started to crack. Chapter 5, Hierarchy Redefining the Shinobi World Power changed the way people looked at Naruto long before it changed the world. Not all at once. Not in speeches or declarations. In pauses. That was how it started. A heartbeat too long before someone answered him. A flinch too small for ordinary eyes to catch when golden light briefly flickered under his skin. The way experienced Jonin people who had fought wars, buried teammates, and stared down monsters with enough composure to make fear seem impolite would glance at the smooth, edged absence cut into the quarry wall, and then look back at Naruto, like they were recalculating where to place him in their understanding of reality. The change settled over Konoha in layers after the battle with Raiden. The damaged warehouse district was sealed off. The quarry became a restricted zone by Tsunade's direct order. Anbu collected every fragment of Raiden's gear, every scrap of his seals, every trace of black-red residue left by the corrupted Speed Force. Medical teams ran themselves ragged, stabilizing secondary damage and checking civilians for delayed injuries from structural shock. Intelligence divisions were given the impossible task of categorizing a threat whose movements often occurred faster than their own memories could frame. And in the middle of all of it, Naruto became the still point people orbited warily. He did not like that. He understood it. But he did not like it. 3 days after the quarry fight, he stood in Tsunade's office again while she reviewed his medical seals with the expression of someone forcing rage into professional shapes. Shizune stood beside her with a stack of reports. Kakashi leaned against the far wall pretending to look lazy and failing because his one visible eye was too sharp. Jiraiya sat on the window ledge with his arms folded, and all the humor burned out of him. Naruto stood in the center of the room and felt like everyone expected him either to explode or solve the future, which were, annoyingly, both possibilities. Tsunade peeled the last monitoring seal from his forearm and flicked it onto the desk. "You're stabilizing faster than I'm comfortable with," she said. Naruto blinked. "That sounds like a compliment with a knife hidden in it." "It is." Shizune adjusted her grip on the reports. "Your baseline recovery after using the Sage State is improving, so is cellular cohesion under stress. The harmonic pattern Kurama established seems to be—" Naruto held up one hand. "Still hate when you all say things like that so casually." Kakashi spoke without moving from the wall. "The alternative wording is the giant fox and the ancient lightning inside you have stopped trying to murder each other quite as often." Naruto pointed at him. "See? Much clearer." Tsunade ignored both of them. "The problem isn't your immediate condition," she said. "It's scale." That pulled Naruto's attention back fully. Jiraiya pushed off the window ledge and dropped lightly to the floor. "The scroll!" Naruto's face tightened. The scroll recovered from Raiden had been translated in stages across 2 sleepless days by a combined effort of Jiraiya, Tsunade, Konoha's best seal specialists, and 2 elderly archive keepers who had spent most of the process muttering that the Uzumaki clan had always been talented enough to become everyone's problem eventually. The results had not been comforting. The dimensional coordinates were real, or at least real enough to model. Not locations in ordinary geography, but fault intersections, points where energy, space, and some deeper underlying structure of reality overlapped in unstable ways. The notes suggested that repeated awakenings of the speed-based bloodline, especially forced or corrupted ones, did not merely create individual users. They created stress on an interdimensional current. Raiden's texts referred to by several names, none of which translated neatly. The simplest version was the one Naruto had already given it in his own head, Speed Force, and somewhere beyond ordinary space a fracture had begun to form in it. Naruto looked between them. "You think it's already getting worse?" Jiraiya answered first. "We don't think, we know." He unrolled a map onto Tsunede's desk, not a normal political map, but one overlaid with sealed geometry and red-marked incident points. Border skirmishes broken up by invisible intervention. Unexplained vibration phenomena in remote passes. Reports of objects briefly losing structural cohesion in places with no known shinobi activity. A tower bell in the land of rivers that had split into microscopic dust without blast damage. A bridge support in Earth country that had phase shifted half a centimeter out of alignment and then snapped under its own weight. Naruto stared. These all happened after Raiden. Some before, Kakashi said. We only know how to interpret them now. Naruto's jaw tightened. And the others? Tsunede's expression darkened further. No confirmed identities, just the scroll note, 3 remaining dormant bloodlines. Dormant, Naruto repeated, so they haven't awakened yet. Jiraiya's eyes flicked toward him. Or they have, quietly. No one liked that answer. The room went quiet. Outside the sealed windows, Konoha carried on pretending the world was still answerable by old categories. Inside, Tsunade made a decision. The 5-cage summit moved up, she said. Naruto frowned. Summit, Kakashi nodded once. Emergency security meeting? Officially about cross-border anomalies and the quarry event. Unofficially, they want to talk about you, Tsunade said flatly. Naruto did not react immediately. He probably should have been surprised. Maybe offended. Maybe smug. Instead, he just felt tired in a way sleep no longer fixed. The rakeage, he asked. Tsunade gave him a humorless look. Leading the calls for containment protocol review, Naruto's eyes narrowed. Containment! Among other ugly words, Jiraiya folded his arms. They saw enough of the fight to understand one thing clearly. If you turned on a village, ordinary military response would not stop you in time. The bluntness stung, not because it was wrong, because it was the kind of truth that turned people into categories: threat, asset, strategic imbalance. Naruto looked at the map again, at the fracture markers, at the red notes spiraling around coordinates no ordinary shinobi should have had reason to believe existed. I'm going, he said. Tsunade's answer was instant. No, Naruto looked up. You are not invited, she said. And if you walk unannounced into a summit where half the room is already afraid of you, they'll stop hearing anything except their own panic. Naruto held her gaze. And if I don't go, they'll decide what to do about me without me in the room. No one answered because no one could deny it. Tsunade exhaled through her nose, the sound thin with frustration. I will represent Konoha's position. Naruto's voice dropped. What if Konoha's position isn't enough anymore? That landed harder than he intended. Tsunade's eyes sharpened. For a moment, Naruto thought she might slam a fist through the desk, just to remind the room who protected this village before destiny started getting creative. But when she spoke, her tone was quieter. Don't say that like I haven't been asking myself the same thing. The silence after that held too much honesty. Naruto looked away first. Kakashi broke the moment because sometimes that was his real talent. Then perhaps, he said mildly, we should focus on what Naruto can do before the summit becomes useful theater. Naruto turned back. Which is? Jiraiya tapped the map. Find out whether the fracture is escalating faster than the scroll predicted. Naruto frowned. How? Kakashi's visible eye curved slightly. You tell us. You're the only sensor we have for this. That was the day Naruto learned what global-scale reconnaissance felt like. The first time he tried to spread himself across all 5 nations, he nearly vomited, not from speed, from information. They chose a high, isolated plateau outside Konoha for the experiment. Wide sky. Open line of sight. Suppression seals in concentric rings just in case his control slipped. Tsunade, Kakashi, Jiraiya, Yamato, Shikamaru, and 3 sensor specialists formed the monitoring team. Sakura had insisted on being there too and stood with her arms crossed, and a medic's focus so intense it looked like she could punch a fever out of the air if it misbehaved near Naruto. Shikamaru held the operation notes and looked, in Naruto's opinion, deeply resentful that reality had become more annoying than his usual definition of troublesome. Let me get this straight. Shikamaru said as Naruto stretched his shoulders. You're going to use those temporary speed clones of yours to physically traverse multiple national routes at once, share perception across them, and relay anomaly points back here before they collapse. Naruto nodded. Yep. Shikamaru squinted at him. That sounds fake. Thank you, Naruto said. I feel very supported. Jiraiya stepped in before the bickering could spiral. The clones won't hold full independent consciousness the way shadow clones do. But if Naruto maintains the central still point and uses the clones as extensions of motion rather than separate minds, he may be able to process snapshot data from each route. Shikamaru stared at him, then at Naruto, then back at Jiraiya. I hate this entire paragraph. Duly noted, Kakashi said. Naruto stepped into position at the center of the seal rings and inhaled nature energy, Kurama's warm red harmonic, gold orbiting, the world opened. He could feel the nations now not as politics or borders, but as distance. Terrain, lines of travel, wind over plains, water channels, mountain ridges, old roads, the possible paths motion could take if someone built themselves into its language hard enough. He extended both hands, gold gathered, then split. One speed clone formed to his left, then another, then three more in a widening ring, not smoke-borne, not copies produced by hand signs. These emerged out of accumulated velocity, each one stepping into solidity on a residual line of motion with Naruto's face, Naruto's posture, Naruto's bright eyes sharpened by the same golden ring light. Sakura muttered, "That is still deeply unsettling." Naruto grinned. "Thanks." Shikamaru pointed lazily with his notes. "You go northwest, you east-southeast, you all of them are me," Naruto said. "I know, I'm trying to preserve my sanity by pretending they aren't." The clones moved, not all at once, in a dramatic burst, in assignments. One shot toward the land of wind routes, another toward the coastlines that eventually fed mist country traffic. Another cut through mountain channels where Earth country trade passed. Two ranged along Fire Country's own borders and neighboring river systems. Naruto remained in the center of the plateau and became 5 horizons at once. The sensation hit like being unfolded. Each clone carried his body's vibrational structure, his speed-based sense, his current sage mode stability but thinner. Less duration. Less resilience. Enough for scouting, not prolonged combat. Their awareness did not feel like separate people the way shadow clones sometimes did when they popped and returned memories all at once. This was stranger, simultaneous, a continuous braid of perspective threaded through one central self. He was on a desert ridge watching heat ripple above sand. He was on a pine-lined border path hearing a loose sign creak 2 villages away. He was above ocean spray on a black cliff where seabirds wheeled in patterns so slow they barely deserved the word movement. He was in Konoha, standing perfectly still on a plateau with Shikamaru already frowning because Naruto's pupils had widened in the specific way they did when his brain was currently too many places at once. "Report," Kakashi said quietly. Naruto's voice came from the original body, but his attention was everywhere. Minor phase instability near the southern river country bridges. One support beam out of sync by less than a centimeter. A breath. Dust resonance event in a quarry route east of Earth country. Not big, feels old. Another breath. Coastal anomaly, 2 fishing nets fused at molecular edges. Weird, small. His head turned slightly, tracking something none of them else could see. There's something in wind country. Tsunade stepped closer. Define something. Naruto's right hand twitched. Far away, the speed clone on the desert ridge crouched and touched the sand. The grains hummed wrong, not corrupted like Raiden, not stable like Naruto, dormant almost, like a chord not yet struck but already tuned. Naruto frowned. "Someone," he said slowly, "or something tied to the bloodline. Deep, buried, feels asleep." Jiraiya and Kakashi exchanged a look. "Mark it," Jiraiya said. Shikamaru was already writing. The operation continued for 40 minutes. By the end of it, they had a rough picture. The fracture strain was spreading in thin, subtle signs across the continent. Not world-ending yet. not visibly. But the pattern was escalating. The more Naruto learned to sense the deeper frequency beneath reality, the more obvious it became that the shinobi world was beginning to vibrate at the edges in places where it should have remained structurally calm. And worse, there were at least 3 distinct dormant signatures, not confirmed people, not faces, not names, but bloodline echoes, waiting. When the last clone dissolved back into golden motion, Naruto staggered half a step. Sakura was beside him instantly. "Sit down! I'm fine. You just used your nervous system like a map." Naruto sat down, mostly because she pushed him. Shikamaru looked over his notes with the expression of a man considering whether early retirement might still be possible if he sprinted hard enough in the opposite direction of destiny. "So," he said. "Best case," Jiraiya rubbed at his jaw. "The fracture is real, but we're still ahead of catastrophic failure." Shikamaru looked at Naruto. "Worst case," Naruto stared at the horizon. "The other bloodlines start waking up," he said, "or someone forces them awake." No one said Raiden's name. "They didn't need to." The 5-cage summit took place in neutral territory 2 days later, in a fortified stone complex built for diplomatic meetings and, judging by its architecture, for quietly reminding everyone involved that trust was a temporary arrangement. Naruto was not invited, so he arrived early. He did not storm in. He did not announce himself with lightning or crash through a wall for dramatic effect, though the temptation existed, and he resented how much it existed. Instead, he phased through 3 outer barrier grids, 2 sets of physical walls, and 1 sealed meeting chamber door with the careful control of someone who had learned the difference between impressive and useful. By the time the guards realized their seals had not failed so much as been politely ignored, Naruto was already standing in the summit room beside one of the support pillars, hands in his jacket pockets, watching the empty chairs around the circular table. The room smelled of stone, ink, and tension that had not technically arrived yet. He had been there for 14 minutes when the first delegation entered. The Mizuki's attendants noticed him first and nearly drew weapons before Mei herself lifted one hand slightly and stopped them. Her eyes narrowed in open surprise. "Well," she said, "that's one way to make an entrance after the entrance." Naruto gave a small, unapologetic shrug. Gaara came in moments later with Kankuro and Temari. Gaara's expression changed the least, which somehow made it easiest to breathe. The Kazekage took one calm look at Naruto already inside the secured room and said only, "You came." Naruto nodded once. "Yeah." By the time the Reikage entered with Darui and C, the room's temperature might as well have dropped 10 degrees. A stopped dead, his gaze locked on Naruto. Blue lightning flared instinctively around his shoulders. "You," Naruto held his ground. "Me," the Reikage's jaw flexed. "This summit chamber is sealed behind 6 layers of security." Naruto glanced around. 7, if you count the one outside the eastern corridor. One of the guards outside made a confused sound through the doorway. A's expression darkened further, which Naruto would have enjoyed more if the man wasn't currently radiating enough hostility to count as weather. Tsunade entered last among the cage, saw Naruto already present, closed her eyes briefly, and pinched the bridge of her nose with the deep weariness of someone who had predicted this exact outcome and still hated being right. Kakashi, just behind her, looked at Naruto and somehow conveyed, "Of course you did this, and I'm relieved you're alive," in a single flat glance. The summit began badly and improved only by comparison. Maps were unrolled, reports exchanged. The quarry footage sketches, witness statements, and damage assessments circulated under guard. The translated portions of Raiden's scroll were presented in controlled fragments. The term fracture entered the room and made everyone hate the room a little more. Then said the word he had clearly been waiting to say: containment. The syllables landed like a gauntlet. Naruto's eyes narrowed. The Reikage stood, one large hand braced on the stone table. "We are discussing an entity," said, voice low and iron hard, capable of crossing national borders in moments, phasing through reinforced barriers, nullifying or bypassing conventional interception, and deploying techniques with battlefield erasure potential. His gaze shifted to Naruto without softening. Intentions are not a strategy. Tsunade was on her feet before the last word finished echoing. He is not an entity. I didn't look away from Naruto. That remains to be seen. The temperature in the room changed, not because of chakra, because Tsunade's patience ended. The Hokage's palm hit the table hard enough to crack the edge. "Watch yourself," she said. May leaned back slightly in her chair, gaze sharp with interest and calculation both. Anoki hovered irritably above his seat, muttering about reckless children with divine complexes, though whether that applied more to Naruto or the Raikage seemed fluid. Gaara remained still. Naruto could feel everyone's eyes rotating between politics and fear, and for a brief, ugly moment he understood exactly how easy it would be to let that fear define the conversation. To force the room quiet, to let speed itself become argument enough. Instead he stepped forward. "I'll save us time." Naruto said. The room went still. "I'm not interested in politics, not titles, not replacing any cage, not ruling anything." He looked around the table, meeting each gaze in turn. "I don't want your villages, I don't want your armies. I don't want to be contained, studied, worshipped, or turned into a diplomatic category because everybody's scared of what they saw in that quarry." No one interrupted. Naruto's voice stayed even, which cost him effort. "But I also get why you're scared." That was the sentence none of them expected. May's eyes sharpened. Gaara's expression shifted, just slightly, even A's lightning flickered. Naruto continued, "If someone with my power decided people didn't matter anymore, old rules wouldn't stop them fast enough." "You're right about that." He put both hands on the cracked table and leaned in a fraction. "So stop wasting time deciding whether I'm a problem to lock up and start dealing with the fracture before reality comes apart under all of us." A's gaze hardened again. "And what guarantees do we have that you won't become the problem we fail to stop?" Naruto looked at him for a long moment, then moved, not with warning, not with diplomacy. With the fastest straight line strike the Raikage could produce from standing position. Lightning cloak flaring blue-white as he shot across the summit chamber in a blur aimed directly through the space Naruto occupied. To the room, it looked unavoidable. To Naruto, inside his structured perception, it looked honest. I wasn't trying to kill him. He was testing the line, testing reflex, control, instinct, testing whether fear of Naruto was theoretical or immediate. Naruto did not move his feet, he phased. A's strike passed through Naruto's chest without contact, lightning shearing the air and cracking the stone pillar behind him. The Raikage landed on the other side of the room, turned, and saw Naruto still standing exactly where he had been, hands never leaving the table. Silence hit like impact. Naruto let solidity return. "I could have hit back," he said quietly. No one breathed loudly enough to be heard. "I didn't." I stared at him, and though the Raikage's pride remained where it had always been, heavy, dangerous, immovable, something in his face shifted, not trust, not even acceptance. Recognition. Naruto had just made the argument no summit rhetoric could have made. Not that he was harmless, but that restraint at this scale was a choice he was actively making. Tsunade sat back down first, because victory sometimes looked like refusing to gloat. Gaara spoke next. "The question is no longer whether Naruto can be contained," he said, calm as dry sand moving under deep pressure. "The question is whether any of us can afford to treat him as separate from the solution." That ended the containment argument publicly. Privately, Naruto knew fear would remain. It should. Power this far outside shared norms always left residue in politics, but the summit shifted after that. Less energy wasted on imaginary cages, more spent on routes, sensors, anomaly reporting, and inter-village coordination. By the end of 6 brutal hours, a fragile consensus emerged. Naruto would operate independently, but transparently where possible. Anomaly reports from all nations would route to a shared emergency SEAL network. Each village would assign limited liaison teams, though everyone privately understood that keeping pace with Naruto operationally was less teamwork and more being informed where the godlike blonde disaster had already solved your crisis. Naruto found that phrasing unfair, mostly because it was accurate. The next month changed the shinobi world in ways no official record could fully capture. Naruto did not become a ruler. He became a phenomenon of intervention. A border conflict that should have turned bloody in the north of Fire Country ended when two opposing commanders found their drawn blades phased harmlessly through each other's grips, and a blonde shinobi sitting on a rock between them asking if they were really willing to start a war over a supply. Route misfiled by a drunk quartermaster. An assassination attempt in the Land of Water failed because the killer's senbon unraveled into metallic dust an inch before reaching their target, followed immediately by Naruto appearing upside down from a ceiling beam and asking the stunned noble if he might consider being less politically irritating in public. A flash flood in Wind Country never became a mass casualty event because 6 speed clones ran evacuation patterns through 3 villages simultaneously, while the original Naruto phased through collapsing supports and vibrationally realigned a jammed floodgate from the inside. He moved between nations so fast rumor lost the ability to keep up. Some said he was in 5 places at once. Sometimes he was. That was the strangest part. Speed clones improved rapidly with use. Naruto learned to maintain them longer by anchoring each clone to a clear objective rather than trying to let them improvise too broadly. 1 clone to scout, 1 to evacuate, 1 to intercept a structural failure, 1 to carry messages, 1 to sit on a caged desk and eat half their snacks while delivering a warning in person because apparently diplomatic tone remained incompatible with Naruto's natural operating settings. The world began adjusting around him, not comfortably, but undeniably. And with every intervention, every split-second prevention of a larger disaster, Naruto felt 2 truths growing side by side inside him. The first was exhilarating. He could do so much good this way. The second was terrifying. If he stopped carefully choosing why he was moving, motion itself would swallow the reasons. That tension followed him into every mission. It reached its breaking point with Sasuke. The meeting happened at dusk in Konoha after nearly 12 straight days of near-continuous intervention across multiple territories. Naruto had returned physically intact and spiritually frayed in ways no medic scroll could chart. He could feel it himself. Conversations in ordinary time had become difficult. Not impossible, never that, but irritating in a way he hated admitting. People paused, blinked, thought in measurable chunks. Their speech arrived too slowly if he wasn't careful to tune himself down. He had started doing that deliberately in the village, slowing, grounding, leaving the golden orbit quiet unless necessary. It helped. Not enough. He found Sasuke on the roof of a low administrative annex, sitting with one knee drawn up, watching Konoha's evening lights come on one window at a time. Naruto landed beside him. Neither spoke for a while. That part was normal. Eventually Sasuke said, "You're late." Naruto blinked. "You said sunset." "It was sunset 12 minutes ago." Naruto opened his mouth to argue, then realized Sasuke was technically correct and hated that. "You counted. You always do that stupid offended face when I'm right." Naruto snorted and sat down. The village spread below them in amber and deepening blue. Smoke from cooking fires, lanterns, distant chatter, dogs barking. Somewhere down in the main road, somebody was already queuing for ramen. Too slow, some cruel hidden part of Naruto's brain whispered. He shoved that thought down so hard it nearly hurt. Sasuke looked at him sidelong. "You're doing it again." Naruto frowned. "Doing what?" "Leaving before you've actually left." The words slid cleanly under Naruto's guard. He stared out over the village. "That obvious to me?" "Yeah." Naruto let out a long breath. For a while he said nothing because explaining it felt impossible in ordinary language. How do you tell someone that time itself had changed texture? That other people still mattered so much it ached, but your perception kept trying to widen into scales where individual seconds stopped feeling expensive and started feeling endless. That love for the world and distance from it could grow in the same direction if you weren't careful. Finally, he said, "When I'm in it, really in it, everything makes sense." Sasuke waited. Naruto flexed his fingers against the rooftop tile. "Every movement has shape. Every angle matters. I can see what happens next fast enough to stop the bad version before it lands. I can be where I need to be." He laughed once without humor. "It feels right, too right." Sasuke's expression stayed unreadable, and when you slow down, Naruto looked at him. "It feels like I'm underwater." There it was, the ugliest truth. Sasuke did not flinch from it. "That sounds dangerous," he said. Naruto barked out a laugh. "Wow, thanks, very insightful. I'm serious, I know." The Uchiha looked back over the village lights. "You're running so fast," Sasuke said quietly. "You're leaving yourself behind." The sentence landed harder than any of Raiden's strikes. Because Naruto had been circling the same fear without letting it name itself. Power at this scale didn't just threaten others when misused. It threatened the user with irrelevance toward ordinary life, toward patience, toward sitting through slow moments because they mattered even when they did not optimize anything, toward remembering that being present with one person could outweigh stopping 10 minor crises if the person was someone you promised not to vanish from. Naruto swallowed. "I'm trying." Sasuke's answer came immediate and mercilessly honest. "Try better." Naruto glared at him. Sasuke ignored it. "You save people. Good, keep doing that. But if you become something that can only exist in crisis, then the crisis wins anyway." Silence settled between them, then Sasuke stood. "Come on." Naruto frowned. "Where?" Sasuke gave him a flat look. "Ramen." Naruto blinked. "What? You heard me. You hate when I drag you to ramen." "I hate when you talk during ramen." Sasuke stepped toward the roof edge, then paused. "Today, don't talk much." Naruto stared at him, then laughed, really laughed for what felt like the first time in weeks. They went to Ikaraku. No speed, no clones, no golden lightning. Naruto forced himself to walk. Every second of it scratched at him at first. The human pace. The way people moved in clumps instead of lines. The pauses at crossings. The unnecessary social micro-delays of ordinary life. But as they approached the stand, the smells hit first broth, soy, grilled pork, warm noodles, wood, evening air. Chuchai's voice. I-Aim's familiar laughter, the scrape of stools. The rhythm of real life not optimized for anything except being lived. Naruto sat. So did Sasuke. Chuchai looked between them and wisely chose not to comment on whatever cosmic alignment had produced this pairing. 2 bowls landed on the counter. Steam rose. Naruto wrapped his hands around the warmth and did nothing else. No scanning, no reaching outward, no tuning for fractures or anomaly ripples or national crisis vectors, just broth. Heat, breathing. Sasuke beside him, Konoha at his back. It was, to Naruto's private horror, one of the hardest things he had done in the entire story, and because it was hard, it mattered. By the time he finished the bowl, his shoulders had dropped a fraction. The world had not ended because he sat still for an hour. That lesson stayed with him. It would need to. The fracture activated early, not fully, but enough to make everyone understand how little time remained. The first sign came at the edges of the world, not metaphorically, literally in scattered places across the shinobi nations. Reality began to pixelate. That was the only word people later found that came close. A mountain horizon in Earth country stuttered into square-edged distortions for 3 seconds before snapping back. The surface of a river in the land of tea broke into flickering geometric fragments no natural genjutsu could reproduce. A section of forest path in wind country lost color, cohesion, and continuous shape all at once, turning into a storm of jittering light blocks before settling into matter again with 2 trees permanently fused at the trunk. Naruto felt all of it at once from Konoha's outer wall. He was already moving before the first alarm reached Tsunade. Speed clones tore across the nations. Reports flooded the emergency SEAL network. Cage liaison teams activated. It still wasn't enough. because this was no longer a sequence of isolated anomalies. This was escalation. Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument under a darkening sky, gold orbiting hard and fast now, the sage state already settling over him as his perception widened to track collapsing coherence lines across entire regions. Kakashi landed beside him. How bad? Naruto didn't look away from the horizon. Bad enough. Tsunade arrived next. Can you hold it? Naruto's jaw tightened. Not alone. That answer hung there terrible and honest. Then the air changed, not behind them, in front of them. 3 points of distortion opened above the village outskirts, not full portals, not tears in the dramatic storybook sense, but local violations where space forgot how to behave continuously for just long enough to let something through. Naruto turned fully. So did Kakashi and Tsunade. The first figure stumbled out of a vertical slit of shimmering gold-white distortion and nearly fell to one knee before catching themselves. A woman, maybe late 20s, skin marked with thin, luminous lines running down one side of her neck and arm like circuitry under flesh. Sand-colored cloak torn at the hem. Eyes bright with exhausted urgency. The second emerged in a burst of blue-violet flicker, taller, leaner, dark-skinned, one sleeve burned away and old seal work spiraling around the exposed shoulder. He landed hard, looked around once, and immediately found Naruto like a compass needle snapping north. The third appeared last and least dramatically a younger boy, not much older than Naruto had been at the start of too many disasters, silver hair braided back, breathing like he had outrun death by exactly one step and wasn't convinced it had noticed yet. They were not enemies. Naruto knew that before any of them spoke, not because they looked harmless, none of them did, but because the frequencies in them resonated like distant kin to his own, not fully awakened the same way, not all stable but real. Bloodline echoes made human, the other three. The woman straightened first, her voice shook once, then steadied through force of will. "You're Naruto Uzumaki?" Not a question. Naruto nodded once. She looked at the fracture light still flickering at the far edges of the sky and then back at him. "Good," she said. The taller man stepped forward, eyes hard with the fatigue of someone who had crossed too much impossible ground in too little time. "We don't have long." The youngest of the three swallowed and said the rest like it had cost him every last reserve of courage. The fracture opened from the inside. The world seemed to still. Naruto's gold-ringed gaze sharpened. "Then we close it," he said. The woman met his eyes with something like relief and dread braided together. "That's why we came," she said. "Because you're the only one stable enough to survive going in." Lightning orbited Naruto in silent rings. Below them, Konoha waited. Beyond them, the shinobi world trembled at the seams. And at last, the true shape of the next battle stood in front of him not as an enemy to defeat, but as a wound in reality itself. Naruto looked at the three other bloodline bearers, then at the flickering edge of the world, then inward toward the still point at the center of all this impossible motion. The storm had reached the border between worlds. Chapter 6, Domain, the Speed Force Domain, and the final evolution. The sky above Konoha looked sick, not dark, not storm-covered, sick, like reality itself had developed a fever. At the horizon, the world no longer held a clean shape. Mountains pixelated at the edges. Clouds fragmented into geometric blocks and then reassembled seconds later in the wrong place. Rooflines shivered. Lantern light bent in squares. For brief, nauseating instants, space seemed to forget whether it was continuous or constructed, like someone had taken a blade to the hidden threads holding the world together and was waiting to see what fell apart first. Naruto stood on the Hokage monument and felt the fracture calling. Not with sound, with pressure. A pull in the deeper layer of his new senses beneath chakra, beneath ordinary motion, beneath even the golden current that had become so familiar in his body that he sometimes forgot how unnatural it should feel. The fracture was no longer just a structural weakness somewhere beyond the shinobi world. It was an open wound in the road that all this speed ran along. A rupture in the thing beneath movement, and it was getting worse fast. The three newcomers stood across from him on the monument ridge, each carrying a different variation of the same hidden inheritance. The woman in the sand-colored cloak had introduced herself first. "Meika," she said, voice clipped by urgency. "Old Yuzushiaga Kurline. My family buried the signs for generations because every time someone got close to awakening, something around them went wrong." The tall man gave his name next, Shin. His voice was low, his gaze steady in the way of someone who had lived too long expecting disaster to arrive honestly. The seal work burned into the exposed shoulder of his right arm pulsed faintly when he moved. Not corrupted like Raiden's. Controlled but strained, the youngest swallowed before speaking. Ren, he could not have been more than 16, maybe 17, too young for the look in his eyes. The kind of look Naruto had seen in orphan mirrors and battlefield survivors, the kind that came from understanding too early that the world broke first and explained later. Naruto felt the frequencies in all three of them, not equal, not identical. Meika's current was fast but intermittent, like a pulse signal someone had trained into obedience through constant discipline. Shin's moved heavy and directional, less fluid than Naruto's, more like controlled acceleration bursts locked to preset channels in his seal-marked arm. Ren's was the most unstable bright, nervous, flickering along the edge of full ignition and collapse both. None of them were what Naruto had become. All of them had enough of it to feel the fracture. Tsunade landed between Naruto and the others without asking permission from anyone, which was her most natural state of being. "You're going to start talking in complete sentences," she said. Meika met the Hokage's gaze without flinching. "The fracture isn't just forming, it's cycling. Something opened it from inside the speed stream itself, and now reality is failing in pulses." Kakashi stepped to Naruto's left, eye narrowed. "What opened it?" Shin answered that one. "We don't know," Naruto frowned. "That's not good enough. It's the truth." Shin said, not defensively, just flatly. "We each felt it in different regions. Dormant strain. Escalation. Then the rupture pattern changed. It stopped behaving like passive overload and started behaving like active expansion." His gaze shifted toward the distorting horizon. "Something is pulling on the fracture from within." Ren added, quieter, "And if it widens fully, the world doesn't explode." No one breathed loudly. Ren swallowed. "It comes apart." The silence that followed was different from fear. Fear still assumed there would be something left afterward to be afraid in. Naruto's jaw tightened. "Then I go in." Tsunade turned on him instantly. "No!" Naruto didn't even look away from the horizon. "You know I have to." "I know," Tsunade snapped. "That walking into an interdimensional rupture because you're the fastest idiot available is not a strategy." Naruto glanced at her then. "It is if I'm the only one who can reach the center before the edges collapse." Her eyes flashed. "And if you don't come back?" That landed. Because beneath the anger was the question nobody else wanted to ask first. Naruto had answered every escalation so far by moving toward it. Quicker, harder, further, but this was not a battlefield, not an enemy camp, not a rogue shinobi with a wound wearing human skin. This was a break in the architecture of the world. And the truth, cold, precise, impossible to dodge, was that no one could tell him what inside meant. Naruto held Tsunade's gaze, then said, more gently than usual, "If I don't go, a lot more people don't come back." Tsunade's mouth flattened into a thin line. For one moment, the Hokage mask slipped, and what stood in front of Naruto was just a woman who had buried too many people she loved to tolerate another one offering himself up to necessity with that tone. Then she stepped back, not in surrender. In recognition. Kakashi's voice cut in before the moment deepened too far. "What's the plan on the other side?" All three bloodline bearers looked at Naruto. That was its own answer, Meika said. "You're the only one whose system integrated naturally and stabilized fully. If the fracture has a center, you're the only one who can reach it and still remain yourself long enough to do anything once you get there." Ren looked sick even saying it. Shin spoke like a soldier reading a sentence already passed. "We can help align the entry." Hold the rupture open just enough to aim you. But once you go in alone. Naruto breathed once. The golden rings in his eyes were already turning. Kurama's warmth sat low beneath the hum. The fracture called again, stronger this time, enough that the monument stone beneath his sandals gave a tiny shiver. He stepped forward. Then let's not waste time. The breach point formed outside Konoha's eastern perimeter in a wide evacuation-cleared valley. The sky above it had become wrong in layers. Clouds folded inward at sharp angles, light bent in thin, fractured sheets. Space in the center of the valley no longer seemed to occupy a reliable distance. Sometimes it looked 10 meters away, sometimes 100, sometimes like it had depth in the wrong direction entirely. Barrier teams held the outer ring. Sensor shinobi stood in triads, updating seal relays by hand because ordinary communication arrays glitched every time the pulse wave from the fracture hit. The cage were their two Gara via sand platform from the west route, May under full escort, like a thunderhead forced into human outline, Anoki floating with his hands clasped behind him and his expression trapped between offended and grim. No one argued anymore about whether Naruto should go. The argument had become irrelevant the moment the valley air started pixelating at chest height. This was triage now, not politics. Naruto stood at the center of a massive seal framework carved and painted into the earth in overlapping rings. Uzumaki formulae from Maker's memory. Stabilization geometry from Jiraiya and Konoha's archive specialists. Chakra routing arrays from Tsunade's medics. Counter-vibration anchors from Naruto himself, improvised at impossible speed with high-frequency thread channels cut into stone and filled with conductive ink. Meika, Shin, and Ren took the three outer points. Their currents rose carefully, not fully awakened, but enough. Naruto closed his eyes. Nature energy flowed in. Kurama stabilized, gold began to orbit. Jiraiya's hand landed on his shoulder once, not to stop him, just there. Naruto opened his eyes and looked back. The old Sanin's face was stern, but his gaze carried all the things Jiraiya would rather swallow nails than say plainly in public. Don't be reckless. Don't be noble in stupid ways. Come back. Naruto grinned faintly. You gonna give me one of your wise mentor speeches? Jiraiya snorted. No, you'd ruin it by quoting me later. Tsunade stepped up on Naruto's other side and caught his chin in one hand with such abrupt force it startled him. Listen to me, she said. Naruto blinked. She held his gaze like a surgeon setting bone. If your structure starts to go, do not try to force your way deeper. If your heartbeat loses rhythm, pull out. If you feel your physical anchors slipping beyond recovery, you abandon the objective and return. Naruto opened his mouth. She tightened her grip slightly. I know, she said. You won't want to, I'm telling you anyway. Something in Naruto's chest went tight and warm at the same time. He nodded once. Tsunade let go. Kakashi, farther back, lifted one hand in the smallest visible gesture. Not a wave, a marker. I'm here. Sasuke stood beyond the seal lines, silent, arms folded, expression unreadable as ever. Naruto caught his eye. Sasuke did not say good luck, he just said, don't make me come drag you out. Naruto laughed once under his breath. Yeah, okay, then he stepped into the central point. Maker raised both hands. Shin's seal arm flared. Ren bit down hard enough to draw blood and forced his unstable current into alignment with the others. The Earth Ring formulas lit in concentric waves. The fracture answered. Space in the center of the valley tore open not like cloth, not like glass, but like a line drawing itself through dimensions until they could no longer politely pretend they had nothing to do with one another. Gold-white light slashed downward. Red static bled at the edges. Inside was not darkness, not brightness, but movement so dense it made ordinary sight meaningless. Naruto felt the pull like a hand around his spine. Kurama rumbled inside him. Hold the center. Naruto took one breath, then ran. There was no transit, no sense of passing through a tunnel, crossing a threshold, descending into some coherent elsewhere. One instant Naruto was on fractured earth beneath a broken sky. The next, he was inside motion, not surrounded by it, inside it. There was no ground, no up, no horizon. Only currents, infinite ribbons and rivers and arterial flashes of gold, blue, white, red, silver, colors beyond those colors, streams of kinetic existence crossing through one another in impossible geometries. Some moved straight, some spiraled. Some appeared to race backward while arriving ahead of themselves. Particles or memories of particles rushed past in storms. Fragments of light hung like cities made of nerve endings. Time did not feel absent so much as irrelevant. Naruto almost lost himself in the first second, not to fear, to scale. His body knew it was still a body only because Kurama's warmth remained in him like a heartbeat placed under the rest. The red harmonic bassline kept his structure coherent, while the golden current in his coils sang louder than it ever had before, answering the environment like something that had been born homesick and only now remembered what for. Naruto forced a breath, found the center. Stillness inside the storm, and the impossible expanse sharpened. The currents separated into readable streams. Some of what he saw now was not just motion, but life-touching motion. Echoes, imprints, histories, footsteps of power. 100,000 moments where something in some world had run hard enough to leave a mark in the deeper river beneath things. He saw flashes. A child laughing while sprinting down a dirt lane in a village Naruto didn't recognize. A shinobi messenger crossing a battlefield fast enough that arrows seemed to stand still. A woman wreathed in stormlight outrunning a collapsing temple. Raiden older, younger, bleeding into ritual seals and calling agony awakening. Meka kneeling in desert night trying not to let the current hear her fear. Ren as a boy watching a glass cup vibrate itself into fine powder in his hands. And farther still the man in red, not all at once. Not whole. An echo traveling the river in countless directions, leaving meaning behind like wake light. Naruto turned toward the pull of it. There, at the convergence point where several streams crossed and twisted around an expanding tear in the fabric of the place, a figure stood on what could not possibly be called ground, yet nevertheless held the posture of someone comfortable with impossible footing. Red suit, gold trim. Face clearer now than in the mindscape, though not perfectly solid. An idea-made person shaped by the insistence of memory. Calm eyes, tired eyes, kind in the way of people who had carried too much and kept running anyway. Naruto slowed. The echo smiled slightly. You made it. Naruto stared. Who are you? The answer came without drama. A beginning, the man said, and an echo of one. Naruto took another cautious step through the rushing light. You're Barry. The name felt right the instant he said it, like a door in his own understanding clicking open. The echo's smile deepened by barely anything. That's one name. Naruto looked around at the endless streams, the fracture swelling beyond them like a wound in pure movement, and then back at the red-suited figure. You've been in my head since this started. I've been on your road since long before this started. Naruto frowned. That is a really annoying answer. That, the echo said, means you're still yourself. Good. Despite everything, Naruto almost laughed. He stopped closer now, golden lightning orbiting in perfect rings around him, sage mode active, perception sharpened past any scale he'd yet used in the physical world. You said I was always the fastest thing alive, Naruto said. What did that even mean? Barry's echo looked out over the streams. Speed in worlds like yours gets mistaken for talent, technique, advantage, but the force beneath it isn't just movement. It's connection through motion. The truth that distance can be answered, that time between need and response can be bridged. He glanced at Naruto. Some people touch it through science, some through accident, some through lineage, some through spirit. But every so often across worlds it looks for a conduit who can hold more than just velocity. Naruto's jaw tightened. Why me? Because you were built to run toward people? The words struck with unfair accuracy. Naruto looked away for half a second because letting them land directly might hurt more than the fracture. Barry continued. I passed a fragment of the current onward a long time ago, not consciously at first. Echoes do what echoes can across lives, across blood, across places where it almost awakened and didn't. It reached your line because your world had something mine didn't: chakra, spiritual architecture, vessels capable of carrying impossible energies without burning out immediately. Naruto snorted softly. That's a very generous version of what's been happening to me. It's the accurate one. The fracture pulsed, both of them turned. Naruto saw it clearly now. An expanding break where the surrounding streams failed to remain coherent, not empty worse. Overfull. Currents colliding, overfeeding, misrouting into recursive loops that shredded continuity. At the center of the break, a knot of black-red residue still twisted in places, remnants of forced awakenings, corrupted siphoning, unbalanced extractions, Raiden's damage, and more besides. Generations of strain, every unnatural theft biting one layer deeper into the road. Naruto's expression hardened, so I close it. Barry's echo looked at him for a long moment. No, he said softly. First, it tests you. The words had barely settled before the streams moved, not toward Naruto. At him. The speed force, or whatever name the deeper current preferred when not translated through frightened mortal language, did not attack like a beast or a person. It confronted by reflection through possibility. Naruto suddenly stood in every version of himself at once. 1,000 lives. 1,000 choices, not alternate worlds exactly. More like all the meaningful roads inside the one life he had lived. Naruto, as a child alone on a swing, but so fast, no one ever had time to ignore him because he'd already run away from the scene before hurt landed. Naruto, as a genin who learned early that speed could humiliate instead of protect. Naruto at the Valley of the End, striking first, harder, faster, before friendship had room to matter. Naruto after pain, after war, after every grief, running not toward people but ahead of them, becoming something too useful to need, too fast to stay. Naruto hearing Sasuke say you're leaving yourself behind and deciding that leaving everything behind was simply the price of saving more. Naruto as weapon, Naruto as God, Naruto as rescue without rest, solution without self, motion without home. Each one felt plausible. That was what made it terrible. He could see the logic in all of them, the seductive efficiency, no hesitation, no pain of slowness. No need to sit through ordinary hours and let love happen at human speed, just the next crisis. The next city. The next war ended before the first scream finished forming. Barry's echo spoke from somewhere outside and inside the vision all at once. The Force doesn't care whether you are kind. It cares whether you can carry connection without severing yourself from what you connect. The possibilities closed tighter. Naruto saw another version, now one more dangerous because it looked noble. Himself entering the fracture, closing it perfectly, and never returning because sacrificing the self seemed like the cleanest geometry. A hero-shaped disappearance. People mourning, statues, stories, no hard work of living afterward, no ramen at ordinary speed. No learning how to be a person after becoming a storm. That one almost took him. Not because he wanted to die, because part of him still believed the most beautiful answer was the one that cost him everything. Kurama's voice hit him like a strike. Do not become an idiot inside metaphysics. Naruto barked a startled laugh that shattered the vision's grip for one precious instant. Warmth flooded under the gold, fox chakra. Steady. Real. Irritated beyond measure, you are not more honorable for vanishing, Kurama snarled. You are merely absent, the possibilities trembled. Naruto found his center, not the storm's center, his Ikaraku steam in winter air. Uruka's hand on his head. Sakura yelling because she cared enough to bother. Kakashi pretending not to care because he cared too much. Jiraiya's awful jokes and the spaces between them. Tsunade's rage shaped like protection. Gaara's quiet understanding. Sasuke sitting beside him at ramen, forcing him to be there. The child he had once been who wanted the village to see him, not fear him. The man he was still trying to become, who could move faster than anyone alive and still choose to sit still when someone needed him to. Naruto lifted his head. I'm not running away from being human, he said. The visions cracked. The fracture pulsed harder. Barry's echo smiled like a teacher watching a student finally choose the right impossible answer. "Good," he said. "Now earn the rest." The center of the fracture opened, not outward, inward. A radius formed around Naruto where the currents suddenly obeyed his attention. He felt it before he understood it. Every stream in reach, every particle shape, every fluctuation of density, every thermal shift, every molecular rhythm available not as noise, but as manipulable structure. The space around him became legible, terrifyingly legible. Barry's echo stepped back, already fading a little at the edges. Naruto looked at his own hands. Gold no longer merely orbited him. It filled a sphere around him, transparent at first, then visible only by what it changed. Dust like motes of light froze at the boundary. Broken streamlines slowed, distorted kinetic fragments aligned. A section of black-red corruption drifting near the edge of the radius stopped thrashing and hung suspended. Naruto reached toward it. The corruption accelerated to heat, plasma bright. He flinched, and the same fragment slowed instantly instead, dropping toward absolute stillness, darkening into something colder than color. His eyes widened. This was beyond the earlier techniques. Beyond phasing, beyond resonance strikes, beyond the silent annihilation of the supersonic Rasen Shuriken. Within this radius, he did not merely move through matter. He could command how it moved, density, motion, temperature, structural state. Time-like flow as experienced by objects inside the field. A domain, not total, not unlimited, but real. Barry's voice came through the bright storm, full integration. Naruto breathed hard once. "This is insane!" "Yes," Barry said, "use it anyway." The fracture convulsed. Black-red knots surged from the center line, no longer just residue but self-sustaining tangles of corrupted kinetic force trying to widen the tear. The broken legacy of forced awakenings had become a parasitic pattern in the stream. Not alive, not dead, just recursive damage seeking more room. Naruto didn't hesitate. The domain expanded. Not far 20 meters, maybe a little more but enough. Within its boundary, the first wave of corruption slowed so violently it became visible as fractured geometry suspended in amber still motion. Naruto stepped through them, palms open, and phased selectively through the stable parts of the stream while locking the corrupted vectors in stasis. He understood immediately why this power was dangerous. Every solution here could become atrocity elsewhere. Accelerate matter to plasma. Slow it toward absolute zero, increase density until something collapsed under its own structural insistence. Reduce cohesion until a battlefield forgot how to stay assembled. All possible. All one thought away. Naruto clenched his jaw and chose precision. He moved deeper toward the central tier, domain pulsing with him, using controlled vibrational locks to separate corruption from the surrounding current instead of blasting the whole region apart. Every time a knot of black-red recursion rose, he tuned the field around it, accelerating only the broken segments until they burned themselves out while the stable flow passed untouched. It worked, barely, and each use cost him, not chakra alone. Everything, focus, identity, physical anchor. The larger the domain flexed, the more his body in the physical sense became difficult to remember. Fingers felt optional. Gravity felt historical. Breath became a habit he had to deliberately preserve because the stream itself did not need lungs, and seemed mildly confused why he insisted on continuing to have them. Kurama felt it too. "You are drifting," the fox growled. Naruto pushed deeper anyway. At the center of the fracture, he finally saw the true break. It wasn't a hole. It was a recursive folder place where too many forced extractions and unstable awakenings had made the stream bend back on itself, compounding pressure with every cycle. Like a river trapped in a whirlpool that ate its own banks faster with every turn. The wound was feeding itself. To close it, Naruto would have to do more than suppress the corruption. He would have to rewrite the flow, realign the stream across the break, restore continuity, force an impossible current back into one coherent road. He could do it. He knew he could. And the moment he knew that, he also knew the price. Everything, not death exactly, something stranger. If he pushed the domain fully into the rupture, his structure would accelerate with it. Body, chakra, sense of self all drawn so deep into the stream that coming back to ordinary matter might simply stop making sense. He would become motion holding the road together. A guardian-shaped absence. Alive in theory, gone in every way love could measure. Naruto closed his eyes for half a heartbeat. He thought of ramen steam, of Sasuke saying try better, of Tsunade's hand on his chin, of the child on the swing of Konoha, of all 5 nations, of everyone too slow, too ordinary, too precious to deserve a world breaking around them because faster people had treated power like appetite. He opened his eyes. "Then we pay it," he whispered. Kurama roared, not in rage at the fracture, at Naruto. Absolutely not. The fox chakra inside him surged hotter. Naruto's focus wavered. Kurama, no, and for the first time since they had learned true cooperation, Kurama overrode him. Raw fox chakra flooded Naruto's system from beneath, not wild, not corrosive, but immense. Warmth, heat, life. Hunger and sun baked stone and ancient forests, and all the heavy, living animal truth the speed stream lacked. It did not stop Naruto from expanding the domain. It anchored what Naruto meant while he did it. The difference hit instantly. Where before the domain had been pulling him beyond visible light, beyond body, beyond any reason to return, Kurama's chakra wrapped the deepest structures of his being in something unmistakably alive. Not speed, not abstraction, flesh memory, emotion, home, annoyance, loyalty sharp enough to bite. Naruto's voice cracked. "What are you doing?" Kurama's answer came like thunder under the whole stream, reminding you what warmth feels like. The words broke something open in Naruto that the fracture couldn't touch. He laughed once broken, grateful, furious at how much he was going to remember that sentence later. Then he expanded the domain fully. The radius around him blazed into existence like a second sun written in gold and red. Within it, the fracture stopped winning. Currents that had been tearing themselves apart aligned. Corrupted loops froze. Stable streams accelerated across the broken gap, while Naruto, standing at the impossible center of impossible motion, used every ounce of integrated power to hold continuity together long enough for the road to remember itself. He sped matter up where collapse needed burning away. He slowed cascading distortions to zero where panic in the stream had become self-feeding. He phased through the wound's deepest fold and manually, molecularly, spiritually, kinetically pulled the 2 sides of the current back into resonance. The pain of it was beyond ordinary categories. Not physical pain, not only identity pain. Like every memory of himself had to be chosen deliberately or lost to speed's cleaner indifference. Kurama's warmth kept giving him places to stand. Uruka, Team 7, Jiraiya, Sakura, Kakashi, Tsunade, Gaara, Sasuke, Ikaraku, Konoha. He did not hold the fracture alone. He held himself long enough for the fracture to close, and then it did, not with a bang, with relief. The recursive fold unwound. The black-red remnants burned out into harmless particulate light. The stream beneath everything straightened, deepened, smoothed. The wound sealed not like a scar forming, but like a cut, never having belonged in the thing's true shape to begin with. For one vast, soundless instant, all motion everywhere seemed to exhale. Naruto stood at the center of a healed road. Then the stream took him. Back in the valley outside Konoha, the fracture point collapsed inward with a blinding gold-white flash. Every barrier team hit the ground. Sensor seals burst. The 3 bloodline bearers at the anchor points cried out as the force of the closure ran through them and then abruptly vanished, leaving only still air and scorched geometry where the rupture had been. Then there was nothing. No portal, no tear, no Naruto. Silence swallowed the valley. Tsunade's face went bloodless. Kakashi moved first, appearing in the blackened center of the seal framework and scanning wildly for any trace of chakra. Jiraiya was there a fraction of a second later. Sasuke landed hard enough to crack stone. Gaara's sand rushed inward, spreading in search patterns. A's lightning flared reflexively around fists that suddenly had nothing to hit. There was no body, no sign. Only fading gold motes lifting into the night like the last sparks from an invisible fire. Ren whispered, horrified, "No! Mecha sank to one knee." Shin closed his eyes once. Inside the seal's scored ground, Tsunade felt for one thing and one thing only: Naruto's structure. At first she found nothing. Then a pulse, not from the earth, from the air itself. Kakashi turned sharply upward. Far above them, a line of gold appeared where no line should exist. Not a bolt descending, a form returning. Naruto fell out of visible light. His body re-entered matter all at once and badly too fast, half-phased, edges blurred in gold-white afterglow, chakra flaring wild. He dropped from 10 meters up before anyone could react. Kurama's warmth hit the ground first, not literally. Energetically, a wave of dense red chakra rolled under Naruto's falling body like unseen hands cushioning impact. He hit one knee, then both hands, then almost pitched forward entirely before Tsunade and Kakashi caught him from either side. He was there, solid, alive, breathing barely. Golden light still leaked from beneath his skin in fine lines that faded as they watched. His eyes, when he looked up, still held the ringed gold for one impossible second more. Then the light settled. Blue returned. Naruto coughed once and laughed weakly into the dirt. That, he rasped, was a lot. Tsunade made a sound that was half anger, half relief, and not fit for polite company. Then she punched him, not full strength, not even close, but hard enough to rock him sideways out of Kakashi's grip. Naruto yelped. "Oh, that!" Tsunade snapped, voice shaking around the edges, "was for coming back slowly enough to give me a heart attack." Naruto blinked at her, then at Kakashi, who looked 1 inch away from either collapsing in relief or reading him to death via eye contact. Then at Jiraiya, who had his face turned just enough that no one could accuse him of having visibly emotional reactions in public. Sasuke folded his arms and said, perfectly flat, "Told you not to make me drag you out." Naruto laughed again, because if he didn't he might actually cry, and absolutely not with all these people watching. The valley air felt normal. That was the strangest thing: no pixelation, no distortion, no pressure under reality, just wind, stone. Night coming down over a world that had, by inches and impossible force, been convinced to remain a world. Make a step closer, awe undisguised now. "It's gone," she said quietly. Naruto looked at the place where the fracture had been. He could still feel the stream beneath things. The road. The current, but stable now, whole, not silent, never that, but no longer screaming. "Yeah," he said. Ren stared at him like people stared at miracles and disasters when they couldn't decide which category had just saved them. Shin inclined his head once. A warrior's acknowledgement. Nothing dramatic, enough, and somewhere deep inside, Kurama settled with exhausted annoyance. "Do not ever do that again." Naruto smiled, eyes half closing from sheer depletion. "No promises," he whispered inwardly. The fox snarled, but beneath it warmth. Recovery took time, not long in public terms. Weeks, maybe. But inside Naruto's body, the aftereffects moved more slowly and more honestly than headlines or rumors ever would. He slept for nearly a full day after the fracture closed, then woke up starving enough to alarm medical staff and morally offend hospital inventory systems. Tsunade forbade him from leaving bed. Naruto left bed twice. She escalated accordingly. By the third attempt, even Kurama had stopped finding it funny. The physical toll was measurable. His coils had stretched into new stability, but required careful reinforcement. The harmonic relationship between Fox chakra, nature energy, and the speed current had deepened permanently. The new power remained. Tsunade confirmed that with the same expression one might use when discovering a mountain had learned manners but not shrunk. The domain still existed. Naruto could feel it. A latent sphere of possibility around his senses whenever he entered the deeper state. But he did not reach for it casually. He had looked too far into what casual use could mean. That, more than any formal warning, kept him careful. The political aftermath moved in its own strange orbit. No village tried to contain him again, at least not openly. The summit records became quieter than the event deserved, because sometimes the only stable response world leaders had to the impossible was mutual agreement not to write down every part that made their own authority feel temporary. Meika, Shin, and Ren each went different directions afterward, though not before speaking with Naruto privately. Meika chose to rebuild what little safe knowledge her scattered family lines still held, determined that fear would not bury the inheritance again. Shin returned to dismantle the Seal cult remnants that had once tried to weaponize awakenings like Raiden's. Ren, after several awkward silences and one accidental near phasing through a hospital chair, asked if he could come back and train in Konoha sometimes. Naruto said yes before anyone else finished deciding whether that was administratively wise. Life, incredibly, continued. That was the part Naruto kept having to relearn. World almost ends. World gets saved. Next morning the sun still rises. People still argue over vegetables in the market. Academy students still cheat badly at sparring, and then insist they had secret strategies the whole time. Chuchai still complains when Naruto forgets to pay on the first bowl, because apparently godlike dimensional heroism did not include store credit. Good, it shouldn't. One evening, not long after Tsunade finally stopped threatening to personally sedate him for overtraining, Naruto walked through Konoha with no gold lightning, no sage mode, no clones, just Naruto. The village smelled like dinner and dust and warm wood. Children ran too fast around corners in the way only ordinary children could, convinced the world would always catch them. Lanterns glowed to life above the main road. The sky had no fractures in it. Naruto felt the deeper current beneath reality like a quiet river now, not demanding, not tearing. Just there. Part of things. Part of him. He passed people who nodded, waved, or stared a little too long before looking away because legends were always more awkward in person than stories admitted. He reached the familiar stretch near Ikaraku, and then it happened. A child small, determined, sprinting at maximum speed for reasons known only to childhood, came barreling around a corner with a dumpling skewer in one hand and absolutely no chance of correcting course before colliding headfirst with the world's most overqualified safety net. Naruto saw it all. The trip, the twist, the exact point where the child's sandal would catch on the uneven stone, the future half-second in which knees, forehead, and dumplings would all lose against gravity. He moved, not as a storm, not with thunder or spectacle, just fast enough that the child never felt the fall begin. One instant, the kid's foot slipped. The next, Naruto had a hand lightly under their elbow and another at their back, steadying them upright before impact existed as anything more than a forgotten possibility. The child blinked up at him in confused surprise. "Huh!" Naruto smiled. "Careful." The child looked around as if trying to understand why they weren't on the ground, decided questions were less important than remaining in possession of dumplings, and nodded with tremendous seriousness. "Okay." Then they ran off again at only slightly less suicidal velocity. Naruto watched them go. He stood there in the evening light, hands in his pockets, breathing easy. No orbiting gold, no world-ending fracture, no impossible domain-splitting reality open at his fingertips, just the village, just home. Just a road under his feet and places to go that still mattered because he could choose them. Ikaraku's lantern swayed gently ahead. Naruto started walking. He could have been anywhere. He was here. And that, after everything, felt like the truest shape of power he had learned. He was the fastest thing alive. But he only ever ran toward something, never away.